Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Los Angeles City Council. Today is Wednesday, January 25th, 2006. We are here in the John Ferraro City Council chambers. Welcome to members of the public who have joined us, and we are being broadcast live on Channel 35, LA City View, your city channel. We are also being simulcast two other places. A full video simulcast is on our lacity.org website, which is a great wealth of information. People can find out information about their council districts, where they live, and some of the city's programs at www.lacity.org. And we're also being shown on, audio simulcast on Council Phone, in which people can call in and listen to the committees and the full council meetings on telephone. We have council members Gruhl and Hahn, Labange and Smith here. We want to thank them for being part. I'd like to ask council members Cardenas, Huizar, Padilla, Parks, Reyes, Rosendahl, Weiss, Wesson, and Zine to join us. I believe, Ms. Perry and Mr. Rosendahl are both excused today, doing research on homelessness, I believe, in New York City. So ask council members Cardenas, Huizar, Padilla, Parks, Reyes, Weiss, Wesson, and Zine to join us. And as soon as they do, we will begin the meeting. We're also want to welcome and give a great Tom Labange welcome to City of Whittier Council Member Owen Newcomer, who is here. Thank you, Mr. Newcomer. Great to have a visiting city and an important city. There's a Tom Labange welcome. Welcome to our chambers, and we extend our greetings to you. So as soon as we have those council members here, we'll have a full quorum and we will begin. Thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn? We have a motion to adjourn from Mr. Cardenas. Is there a second? Mr. Smith seconds. All right.
There's one more.
Colleagues, is there objection to adjourning?
We're at 9.
All these people are here. We don't
Yes,
have to-
Mr. Labange and Mr. Weiss, yes.
Mr.
Labange?
Weiss first.
Mr. Weiss.
I'm willing to give them, I think you give folks a few minutes. I mean,
We have the motion before us, so it would be in order to vote on it. So folks can vote the way they'd like to. If we can please
many folks
open
are
the
here?
roll on
Point of
adjourn.
information, Mr. President.
Yes, sir.
What time is it on that clock?
¿Qué hora
It
es
is-
en
that is
ese
1
reloj,
minute
señor
fast, I'm
presidente?
told.
Fast, so I
Este,
call
un
hold the
minuto.
vote till
Espera el
10
voto
after
hasta
10.
que sea las 10 y
We
10.
cannot, under the rules of order, if it's something before us, unless people want to debate it, we have to
A no
vote on
ser
it.
que...
All right, let's vote on it.
Okay?
Entonces vamos a
Please
votar.
open the roll. Please close the roll and tabulate the
la
vote.
asistencia y tabule el voto. Los botones no están trabajando.
Okay, wait, let's do that
Un
again.
momento.
Okay. Please
No tenemos un
open the
quórum.
roll on adjournment, motion before us.
Cerrar la sesión.
Please close the roll
Cierre.
and tabulate the vote.
Tabula el
What do we
voto.
have there? Oh, we got all yeses again. Okay, why don't we do an oral vote? Mr. Smith? Mr. Weiss?
No.
Mr. Zine? Sorry, what? We're doing an oral vote on adjournment, yes or no?
Yes.
Yes? Mr. Cardenas?
Yes.
Ms. Hahn? No. Ms. Gruhl?
Yes.
Mr. What do we have, Ms. Clerk, Madam Clerk?
El Consejo está pasando
we
a
have
un voto
6 ayes,
para ver
3
si
noes.
podemos concluir. 6 sís, 3 no.
President, that in a case
sir.
like this,
En un
that
caso
you
así.
instruct the sergeant of
We
arms
have
to
done so.
visit every office and bring in a
Que
council.
llame a cada uno de las oficinas y traiga el Consejo. ¿Cuál es el voto?
We voted.
Votamos.
Cardenas is here.
Okay, the motion fails. It needs a majority of the number of members. It needs 8 members. That fails. All right.
Sí, toma-
All the members are in the building except for one.
Todos los miembros están
We have 2 that
en
are
el
excused today.
edificio,
So
except
if
con
we
la
can
excepción
please
de
instruct
uno.
the sergeant at arms to go up
Quisiera
and to
instruirle
please retrieve the
al
members that are in the building.
sargento de armas que vaya arriba y le instruya que bajen a la Cámara del Consejo. Hay comité en sesión, entonces, ¿qué vamos a hacer? ¿Quién no está? ¿Cuál es el voto?
Please call the roll, Madam Clerk.
Cardenas, Gruhl, Han, Weezer, Labange, Padilla, Parks, Perry, Reyes, Rosenell, Smith,
Secretaria.
Weiss, Wesson, Zine, Garcetti, 10 members
10
present and a
miembros
quorum, Mr.
presentes.
President.
Tenemos
Thank you.
quórum,
Our
señor
first order of
presidente.
business, please.
Approval of the minutes.
Tenemos que
Ms.
aprobar
Gruhl
las
moves and
notas.
Mr. Zine
La
seconds.
señora
Unanimous
Gruhl
vote, those are approved.
pide y el
Mandatory
señor
resolutions for
segundo.
approval.
Mr. Weiss moves, Mr. Smith
Resoluciones
seconds. Unanimous vote, those are approved.
De aprobación
Mr.
unánima
President, this is the
son así
time for
aprobadas.
comments from
Es
the
el
public
momento
on
que es
items
el
not on council's agenda.
Okay, now it's time for
comentarios
public
del
comment for
público
items that are within our
para los
jurisdiction but
asuntos
not
que no
on our
están
council agenda. I'd
en
like
la
to invite
agenda,
forward first
aunque son
Spike
de nuestra jurisdicción.
Marlin.
Primero que nada, a
Mr.
Spike
Marlin,
Marlin,
if you'd like to come forward to the
si pudiera presentarse.
podium, and each member of the
en
public
el
will have 2
estrado
minutes
y
to
cada
address
miembro del público
the
tendrá 10
City
minutos, 2
Council,
minutos
and then
para
after
dirigirse
that, we will hear from
al
the South
Consejo.
Central
Después de
Farmers,
eso
and
escucharemos
then
a
Felicia
los
Ford, please.
granjeros de
Hi, my name is Spike
South
Marlin.
Central.
I live at Lincoln
Mi nombre es
Place.
Park Marlin.
I didn't know Mr. Rosendahl wasn't going to be here today, but I feel good addressing the rest of you. I guess you,
And his staff is here today, too, so
El personal de
his
él
staff
está
is
aquí
here
hoy.
today, so we'll make sure we...
Así
Yeah,
que nos
very good.
aseguraremos que
all right, I've come here basically to beg
aseguraremos que consideremos
on
pido
behalf
aquí
of the,
a implorarles a
of you
nombre
doing the
de
right thing on the
que
tenants of
ustedes hagan
Lincoln
lo
Place.
correcto con respecto a los
There's
inquilinos de
no need
Lincoln
to go
Place.
over the
No
need for affordable
necesitamos
housing. We
repasar
all
una
know
vez
that,
más
we don't need to recap the awful
ni
treatment that we at Lincoln
recapitular el
Place have been,
tratamiento
and the
horrible que
citizens of
nos
this
han dado y
entire
los
nation have been getting at
ciudadanos
the hands of
a
AIMCO,
manos de
commonly
EMCO.
known as America's leading slumlords. I think you get the part. I think you
Que
get
los
that
conoce
every
como-
member of this body has a clear
todo
understanding of
miembro
the
de
evil this
este-
corporation
de este
perpetuates
consejo
upon those
Saben del
Americans who
daño
must
que le
rent
hace
their homes.
esta corporación.
It is clear AIMCO's unashamed abuses of
Y
illegal
este-
tactics to increase their bottom line. The
abuso de
consensus of
AIMCO
every legal mind
es
I
para ganar
attack
dinero
on this
y
subject
es
is
lo
that
que
the
dice
evictions
cada
at Lincoln Place are
mente
illegal.
legal y todo el mundo
Got more
persona legal
written
a quien yo
here,
le
but I've only got 2 minutes, so basically, I'm going to talk about Rocky Delgadillo.
Es
who
que
we need to get outside
de los
counsel.
inquilinos de Lincoln
Mr.
Place
Delgadillo is not doing his job. We are the city.
ilegal.
He's not
Y
defending
quiero
us
hablar de
against
Rocky
this. He's got reasons,
Delgadillo.
he's got
El señor
excuses,
Delgadillo no nos está defendiendo
but
contra
mostly,
esto.
the reasons that
Tiene
I see
razones,
is
tiene
he's
excusas,
taken
y las razones son
$16,000
porque
from
ha tomado
AIMCO. His
$16,000 de
track
AIMCO
record
y
on eviction
los pasados
motions that have been brought
antepasados
before him is
con
abysmal.
respecto a
Apparently,
petición
there's
de
like 300 that were brought before him by the
son-
Housing Committee,
han sido
and he acted on like 2 of them or
horribles,
something.
se le presentaron
We need to
300
get
y
outside
aparentemente
counsel
solamente
to
actuó
help us, and if we
dos de ellas,
don't,
y
it's
necesitamos
shame on us all.
abogados
Yeah.
Appreciate your
independientes
testimony
para
today.
que nos
Thank
representen.
you. Our
a
next
precios
speakers will be
testimonios
Esmeralda
en la
Diaz, Leticia
Nuestros
Martinez,
hablantes
Luis
son
Morales, Lidia
los
Morales,
granjeros.
Candido Santana, Gerardo Santana, Martina Lira, Yoririo Placela, José Santana, Daniel Salgado, Arcelia Escamilla, Alan Tlatoa, Josefina Arroyo, Federico Vargas, Aureliano Velázquez, Magdalena Ortiz, María Aviño, Aurelio González, Elisa Aviña, Rosa Ramírez, Elias Ortiz, Luisa Vallejo, and Josefina Medina. Bienvenidos, welcome.
Thank you. Ok, buenos días. Yo me siento muy privilegiada, con mucho privilegio venir.
Un momento por la traducción, gracias.
Okay.
Just going to pause one moment to get the translator there as well. If we can halt the clock, please. If we can put on 4 minutes for the translation, please. Por favor, gracias.
Ok, buenos días. Mi nombre es Arcelia, vengo representando a South Central Farmer. Pues yo estoy muy agradecida, ¿verdad?, verme dado, digamos, el privilegio de estar hablando con, pues, toda esta gente bella.
Good morning, my name is Aurelia. I'm representing the South Central Farmers, and I'm very grateful that you have given me the privilege to talk to all these beautiful people.
Y muy agradecida con toda la gente, ¿verdad?, que nos está apoyando, digamos, al tener estos lotes en el Alameda 41 Street, Los Ángeles, California. Más que nada, digamos, ver todo el beneficio que les está dando a nuestros hijos.
Okay, un momento. We're very grateful that for all these people who are supporting us to have these lots at 41st and Alameda in Los Angeles, California, and this has been a great benefit for our children.
Ver el beneficio también a toda nuestra gente latina, a toda nuestra gente, digamos, que puede sembrar semilla, ya sea cilantro, ya sea rábano, ya sea todo lo que es de cosas vegetales, digamos que nos puede beneficiar mucho.
and the benefit that we are receiving as Latino people, planting seed by seed, whether it be cilantro or any other seed that would benefit us little by little.
¿Cuánta gente no necesitamos de todos estos vegetales frescos, de todos estos vegetales que es para nuestro organismo, que puede funcionar, digamos, tanto el nopal, cuánto beneficio no tiene, que tanta gente necesita de tanta vitamina que es tipo orgánico?
People need these kind of vegetables, these fresh organic vegetables like the nopal. The nopal has many benefits, and people need these vitamins that are organic.
Pues yo le doy gracias a toda la gente que nos está apoyando, a tantos grupos que nos están apoyando y a toda la gente hermosa que va a todos esos lotes a hacer compras, como ya sea, digamos, todo lo que es de vegetales. Gracias y buenos días.
Thanks for all the support of all the groups and all the people that are beautiful and are coming down to support us and buy all the fresh vegetables from us. Thank you and have a good day.
Thank you. Gracias. Por favor.
¿Yo puedo hablar? Buenos días, soy Luisa Vallejo, representante del jardín que está por la Alameda y la 41, y gracias a ustedes que son tan poderosos, primeramente Dios, que por ustedes estamos allí sembrando los vegetales y comiendo y divirtiéndonos, que yo soy una mujer enferma que cuando estoy en mi casa... Cuando
traducir hasta ahora un momento, entonces después sigue. ¿Ok? Espere un momento y después sigue. Yo le voy a traducir lo que ha dicho hasta ahora. My name is Luisa Vallejo, and we want to thank all of you who have been supporting us at 41st and Alameda. Thank you, all of you beautiful and powerful people, for allowing us to plant these vegetables.
Yo cuando estoy allí en el jardín me siento aliviada, porque cuando estoy en mi cuartito encerrada yo me siento muy enferma. Yo padezco asma, padezco alta presión, y cuando estoy en mi casa siento como que hasta la muerte ya me está llegando por el pescuezo, y allí me siento yo aliviada.
Thank you for the garden. At the garden I feel healthy. When I am in my room I feel sick. I have asthma, high blood pressure. I feel in my room like sometimes death is grabbing me by the neck. And at the garden, I feel healthy.
¿Ya? ¿Ya? Gracias a todos ustedes, que por ustedes tenemos comidita allí en el jardín para comer.
Gracias por su testimonio. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you for all of you. Because of you, we have food there at the garden to eat.
Buenos días, señores concejales y público en general. Mi nombre es Josefina Medina.
Good morning, council and the public in general. My name is Josefina Medina. Muy bien.
Yo soy campesina del Sur Centro y junto con todos mis compañeros venimos a pedir a ustedes que nos ayuden a conservar este espacio verde.
I'm here together with all of the farmers from South Central and my partners from South Central, and we're asking you to help us conserve this green garden.
Ya como ustedes saben, el verde significa esperanza, ya que nuestro planeta nos está dando señales que está enfermo.
As you know, green means hope because our planet has been giving us signals that it is sick.
Este jardín yo le llamo una célula de la ciudad de Los Ángeles, que como ustedes saben, el aire está contaminado.
I call this garden a cell of the city of Los Angeles. As you know, this air is contaminated.
Ya que hay tantas fábricas a nuestro alrededor, no queremos una más. Denos la oportunidad de brindarle a nuestros hijos que están agarrando asma y muchas enfermedades respiratorias a causa del aire. No nos pongan un veneno más ahí.
There are many factories that already surround us, and we are asking for you to support us so that our children do not contract asthma. Don't put one more poison in there.
Señores, ustedes pueden, está en sus manos, así como juntos hacemos leyes, juntos ayúdenos a conservar el jardín de la 41 y Alameda, y al contrario, ayúdenos a poner más lugares. Ya no busquemos vida en otro planeta. La vida la tenemos en Alameda y 41.
Gentlemen, you can, it is in your hands. Together we can make laws, and with your help, we can make more places like this. We don't have to look for life in other planets. We have the life at the garden on 41st and Alameda.
Piensen, nuestros ancianos viven un poco más con gente y no abandonados en las casas de convalecencia. Gracias.
Think about this. Our elders live longer with us without being abandoned in convalescent homes.
Thank you very much. Un momento, if I can, Mr. Cárdenas, Señor Cárdenas, quiere decir.
Gracias por
Algo.
venir y les quería decir y informar que alguien dijo que nosotros somos poderosos. Puede ser que sí, pero en este caso, esta propiedad está en las manos del dueño de antes. Un poderoso juez lo quitó de las manos de la ciudad y ahora está en las manos, la propiedad es de un dueño, otra persona, un individuo, que él es el dueño. Para este momento, él tiene el poder de decir sí o no a todos ustedes si quieren ser los inquilinos de esa propiedad o si quieren seguir haciendo su trabajo allí, pero nosotros nos quitaron eso. I just wanted to inform these good people who came on this public notice opportunity to inform us about their plight of wanting to continue to have their farms on this piece of land. But I thought it was only appropriate that we correct the record, because one of them said that we're a very powerful group of people, this council, but a very powerful judge took that property out of the hands of the city, and that property is now in the hands of a private owner. He is the owner of the property. We cannot tell him what to do. It is up to him as to whether or not who he wants to be the tenants of that property, not us. Gracias. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cárdenas. Our next speaker is Felicia Ford. Ms. Ford, the microphone is yours. Welcome.
Thank you and good morning. I'm sorry, I'm Felicia Ford with Woodlawn Memorial Park Foundation, and I'm the president of that foundation. I'm sorry I don't come with good news today. When I was last here, I basically spoke to you about the issues pertaining to our loved ones being desecrated throughout the Los Angeles County and being thrown in the trash can. Here recently, the attorneys I had mentioned to you had taken the $16.5 million and did not pay the family members, the claimants in this class action settlement. What I come today to tell you are the facts. Woodlawn Cemetery, where we buried our loved ones, we buried them in a beautiful cemetery at the time that they were buried, and that's Woodlawn, Angelus Abbey, Paradise, and Lincoln. Our loved ones were dug up and thrown in the trash can. And let me tell you what they did with them, but before I tell you what they did with them, Woodlawn Cemetery has
cementerio de
been
Woodlawn ha
occupied
sido
at full
ocupado
capacity since
capacidad
1969.
total desde el
They have buried
1969.
thousands of family
Han habido
members in a
miles
10-acre
de miembros de
cemetery.
familia
Thousands.
en un
What
cementerio
they
de
did with
10 acres, y
the
lo que
remains of our
hicieron
loved ones,
con
they
los
dug
restos
them
de
up,
nuestros
threw
seres
them in the trash
queridos,
can. For
los
those that did
excavaron,
have the burials
los
at
tiraron a la
sites,
basura.
there were no
Las
open
personas que
graves.
habían en tierra
And
no
what they
habían
did was they, and I will bring you those
sepulturas
family members,
abiertas.
they will be coming to these meetings to speak publicly.
Y esos miembros de
They
esa
cooked
familia
our
van a
family
venir
members
aquí.
in a makeshift burial.
Lo pusieron
Thousands
en
of them.
unas sepulturas
And no one
temporales,
in this
miles
city
y miles. Y
has
nadie de
said
este
anything.
país, de esta ciudad, ha dicho
I'm
nada.
not sure why they have
No
not
estoy
come to
segura
help these family members
porque
and why they have
nadie ha
relied
acudido a la
on
ayuda
one
de estas
person,
personas y ni
one
siquiera han tenido
foundation
que
to help all of these
tenerse que
family
deberse de
members.
una
The family members
fundación
unfortunately will
a
know
los miembros de la
today
familia.
what happened to
Los
their
miembros
loved
de familia
ones.
se
Unfortunately, they have
sabrán hoy
declared
lo que
war
les pasó
on
a
our
las familias y han
families.
declarado guerra
Thank you very much.
contra
for your
nuestras
Am I
testimony.
wrapping up
familias.
my time, or has the time expired?
Time has expired, I'm sorry.
My time is
Yeah, that's-
expired.
we have the clock
Thank
there.
you for
Thank
allowing
you.
me to speak.
Gracias,
Thank you for
gracias
coming
por
in.
dejarme
Appreciate
hablar.
it.
Gracias.
That closes public comment for
Eso
today.
cierra
Madam
el
Clerk, next order
comentario
of business,
público en
please.
el día de hoy.
Before beginning the regular agenda,
Antes
Mr.
de
President, there are several items
meternos
that
en
have
la
been requested
agenda
to be
normal,
continued.
ha habido ciertos artículos que se han pedido que sean aplazados. El número 3 y 2, la concejal Gould
Is there
ha
any objection
pasado
to
hasta
that,
el
colleagues?
23
Not
de
unanimous vote, so ordered.
enero. Así hemos
There's a request
ordenado.
on item to continue item number 33 to Friday, January 27th.
Is there any objection to that continuation, colleagues? If not, unanimous vote, so ordered.
And there's also a request from the city attorney to continue closed session item number 60 to February 1st.
Is there any objection to continuing that item, number 60, colleagues? If not, unanimous vote, so ordered.
On the regular agenda, items noticed for public hearings, items 1 through 12 are all building and safety items, and the department has advised on items 3, 4, 5, 7, and 8 that those matters can be received and filed inasmuch as the liens have been paid.
Okay, can we take those all up in bulk then, if there's no specials?
Yes, the
Okay.
3, 4, 5, 7, and 8.
Okay, colleagues, any specials on those? If not, prepare the roll and tabulate the vote.
Ayes.
Those are approved. Next
Okay.
items?
And on the also building and safety items, these matters can go forward and the liens can be confirmed. Those are 1, 2, 6, which I believe has a card, 9, 10, 11, and 12.
Okay, why don't we hold 6? Do we need to have a public comment on that?
Yes.
Public hearing? Okay, let's
Yes.
hold item 6 then. The balance of the items, any specials, colleagues? Hearing none, please open the roll on the balance of the items besides number 6. Prepare the roll and tabulate the vote.
Ayes.
Those are approved. Next items.
Next items are public hearing items, and they are street vacations in various council districts, and if there are no protests, council can instruct the city engineer to proceed.
Okay. See no protests. Any specials on those, colleagues?
Mr. President, I believe there is a card on 16.
16. You're correct. Let's hold that on the table. And any other specials, colleagues? Seeing none, let's open the roll on the balance of the items, close the roll and tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Okay. Next items, please.
Next items are items for which
We
public...
will return to items that are held on the desk, so don't worry, we'll be calling you up. Next items, please. Hold on one
Next.
second, sir.
Next items are items for which public hearings have been held. Items 17 through 32. Items 17 and 18 are confirmations. Do you wish to hold those on the desk?
Yeah, let's hold the two confirmations on the desk, please.
Then that would leave before council 19 through 32.
Okay, and we have ordinances that we do have 12 members, so any specials, colleagues? Seeing none, please prepare the roll on the balance. Tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Those are approved. Next items, please.
Next items are items for which public hearings have not been held. Items 33 through 55, and 33 has already been continued, so that would be 34 through 55.
Okay. We have 34, we have a speaker card, so let's call that special. Any other specials, colleagues? Please. Seeing none, please prepare the roll and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Balance of the items are approved. Madam Clerk, for item 18, those did not require public hearing? Oh, I'm sorry, we've held that on the desk. I'm sorry, we have a public speaker card on that as too, but does that require public hearing?
No, public hearing has been held in committee already on item 18.
Okay. So that would require a motion, colleagues, to reopen that, just as a point of information. All right, next items, please.
Next items are the closed session items 56, 57, 58, 59, and 61. Do you wish to hold those on the desk?
Yes, please, hold those on the desk.
And then on the continuation agenda is item number 62, which is Mr. Stuckey's appeal.
Let's hold that on the desk for closed session as well, if there's no objection.
That would go back to the items called special. Mr. President, do you wish to take up the confirmations of the commissioners and city official first?
Let us take the commissioner items first, and we'll wait on the city official, please.
Okay. That would be item number 17, and that's confirmation of Ms. Beatrice Stotzer to the Housing Authority.
Ms. Stotzer, if you'd like to come forward, are you here today? Ms. Stotzer? Okay, why don't we hold, Ms. Stotzer, if you'd like to come to the table? Ms. Stotzer, now it's your time. Come on to the table. If you'll permit me, colleagues, again from the chair, just as chair of Housing, Community, and Economic Development Committee, we unanimously supported Ms. Stotzer's nomination. Very excited to have the possibility of her service and would recommend that we do the same as a full body. So with that, Mr. Zine has pressed his button to speak first. Mr. Zine.
Good morning.
Good morning.
The project's complete. Satakoy in the fine San Fernando Valley. I know that there were some stumbling blocks along the way in your persistent determination. I know Alex Padilla, other representative of government, were at the grand opening, Tierra del Sol, which is a wonderful project. I know there's one more building left to complete, and that'll complete that entire project. So I want to commend you on the great job that was done. I know that the 100-plus families that are living there are very happy. The school's doing well. The community is very pleased with it. I'm not running the Art Deco colors, which we discussed before.
I am responsible for
I know
this.
you're responsible for that, but it's a project that was the former Water and Power site that we know you struggled a long time, and your persistent determination made it happen. So it's a benefit to the entire community. I just want to acknowledge you for that, and also wish you well in this commission position, because I know you're concerned for people and you're concerned for proper living quarters, and I think that your appointment to that by the mayor is a wonderful benefit to the people of Los Angeles. So congratulations, you got my support, and I know we'll have another grand opening down the road when we finish that final community center. So congratulations, it's good to see you again.
Councilman, thank you so much for your support.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zine. Ms. Hahn is our next speaker, to be followed by Mr. Reyes and Ms. Gruhl.
Thank you. And thank you for your willingness to serve on this very important commission. I'm very concerned of a lot of issues, but mainly the violence that's happening, particularly in my district, in the housing developments, particularly Nickerson Gardens and Jordan Downs. We've had 18 gang-related shootings in a month. 7 of those have been homicides. You know, our kids are in the projects are afraid to walk to school, so they're not going to school. Do you have any ideas, or have you thought about how we might make our housing developments safer, a place where families can live in peace and kids can feel free to do the most basic of things, which is to walk to school?
That's a wonderful question, a very challenging one. But as we all know, that the feelings of safety for children is the primary aspect for a child's success in school. Without a child feeling safe, he's not going to feel that he can learn. So there are many avenues. I think the Housing Authority has a great opportunity to not only use surveillance cameras, but more importantly, get into a culture where the families are heard, where they take responsibility for the environment as well as being a resource for the police as well as everyone else. I think they'd want to do that, but more importantly, the city has to be able to be in a position to hear the families and make changes accordingly. I think the way public policy has developed affordable housing for poor people has been deplorable. You don't ghettoize the poor. What you do is you help individuals and families thrive by providing services and making them responsible for their own future, not us responsible for their future.
Well, let me follow. Oh, I'm sorry, I should have asked you to hold my time. Can I have the Tom LaBonge rule? Can I have it back?
That rule, for the record, does not exist.
You mentioned 2 things, cameras and programs. I'm going to follow up with, as you know, we're installing cameras in our Jordan Downs housing development. You know, there's a fine line. Obviously, the police feel like technology can help them police better, but I've heard concerns from residents that they are afraid that the cameras might invade their privacy. They want to have some sense of assurance that the cameras won't be aimed, you know, into their houses and into their windows. What can you say as we try this program first time? How do we maintain that balance between trying to stop the criminal element while not invading people's privacy? And then let me just follow up with the program. I had a meeting in my office on Wednesday where I heard numerous people in the housing developments say that we are lacking programs. Sometimes the gymnasiums are locked shut. If we're trying to get our kids to, not join a gang, how can we tell them to say no when we have nothing for them to say yes to? So can you comment on the cameras and on programs in our housing developments?
Thank you, Ms. Hahn. And after these answers, Mr. Reyes will be our next speaker.
Okay. To the programs, let me speak to that. I think, I know for a fact that the Housing Authority has been extremely challenged in the past regarding its deficits in how it does business. It has to clean up its own house, and we need to know where all the dollars are going to. One of the wonderful things about the Commission on Children, Youth, and Families, where we did the children's budget, we realized and recovered a lot of things about accountability and how things are measured and how things are spent, how we spent our city dollars. I'm hoping that with the Housing Authority and the kinds of things that can be done to make it more accessible regarding how it does its business, how it spends its money, where it's going, how it's being audited, if it's being audited. I have lots of questions, and I don't know the answers to them yet. But my first question is, what are the results of the money that we're spending? If we're not clear about the results and the creation of the environment for families, we're never going to get there, regardless of whether they live in Nickerson Valley or in Encino. Families need to know what they're responsible for and how much resources we're willing to spend in order to bring quality of life issues into their lives. If the Housing Authority can't do that, then we need to really change the way we do business in the city, and especially with the Housing Authority. So those are my thoughts regarding programs. And regarding safety and privacy, I don't know what has occurred to date, but I'm hoping that if it hasn't, that the first thing that we do is bring the families who have the concerns with the Housing Authority staff as well as with LAPD to have the kind of information that's necessary for them to understand not where the cameras are going, but how do they define safety and intrusion. It could be an angle, it could be more lights, it could be that the camera shouldn't be in certain streets. Maybe it should be in side streets near the housing projects. I don't know, but it has to be a dialogue, and it has to be an informed dialogue in which both parties are listened to and both parties have solutions to the table.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hahn. And Mr. Reyes is next, to be followed by Ms. Gruhl and Mr. Cardenas.
Well, it is indeed an honor to be here and to see you at the center table here in the Horseshoe. Colleagues, I can share with you that back in the early 90s, there was a brave group of women who created a sense of urgency in 3rd and Loma in the Westlake area, converted a small lot, expanded, essentially was a child care center, to a multi-service, multi-purpose facility where they have parking and housing, child care, Boys and Girls Club, a child care service center, training for moms, actually a program that said, you can come in here for 5 years, we will do everything in our ability to make you independent in 5 years, and then you need to move on. So it created an access point, an opportunity for many, many families that otherwise would not have been able to excel and become independent. And I believe B. Stotzer was one of the main spark plugs in that effort. Of course, Supervisor Molina was a key component at the beginning stages. But with the help of a lot of folks, we've been able to change not only the physical elements, but also the opportunity of generating a positive environment for the people, for the young ladies. And I can tell you stories, because it goes back to the early 90s. But it's great to see it happen in CD1, and now see it citywide, and even regionally now. And the question I'd like to pose to you is, housing authority is a big challenge. Could you give me some ideas as to some approaches you might look at and how we can leverage these resources to change the environment, both physically and socially, in these facilities that are right now very challenging?
Thank you, Councilman. Well, one of the things that, biggest question that I have is the development vision of the Housing Authority. I know the mayor has a great vision for how to bring affordable housing, And my reason for accepting this appointment is to bring some innovative ideas on how we can leverage those dollars and see the Housing Authority not as a reaction to poverty, but as a partner, a joint venture partner with the city as well as other developers. And how do we provide affordable housing in a way that really meets the needs of the region, not the other way around where we have to isolate families and make them the problem rather than the development being the problem. That's one. I believe mixed use and mixed income is a solution. I believe that the staff has to be accountable for the kind of services that they provide to the public as well as to those tenants that need the help. And those that really do need the help and will always be in Section 8 housing, we need to look at what their limitations are and how we can be able to monitor those limitations. Those are just a few ideas, but the more important thing is, what are the monies there to build new housing? How can it be leveraged for the Housing Trust Fund? What are the kinds of things of developments that we want to envision that is going to create value for the city, not a reaction to put poor people on the sideline that creates more problems with security and creates more ghettos for our city.
Great, and I want to thank the mayor for another great appointment.
Thank you.
And I look forward to working with you on that vision. It's an element that I've been focused on in mixed income, mixed use. I have Mead Housing in my district, an incredible opportunity. It's right next to the river, 2 blocks away from the cornfield, right next to downtown, and it has been isolated for decades. And that vision would apply in a big way, and I'm hoping to working with you and grab some traction, get some internal order into the authority, and move forward. So thank you so much, and I look forward to working with you.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Ms. Gruhl.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. It's my pleasure to be sitting here as a constituent and a friend. She is no stranger to commissions here in the city of Los Angeles. Her expertise on housing issues, on children's issues, are going to be a wonderful asset to the Housing Authority. And with my history in working at HUD, and I've looked at housing projects all over, housing authorities across the country. The one thing that usually struck, whether it be the Secretary of HUD or the Assistant Secretary of HUD or even the head of Community Planning Development, also an Assistant Secretary, they all said to me, wow, this isn't like other housing projects, which is the good news and the bad news. The good news is it doesn't look like Cabrini Greens did in Chicago. They didn't have the same kind of problems, or the locations in Philadelphia that I visited. But what happens is people forget that there is public housing. I know Ms. Hahn you have the majority of the public housing in your district. And so people across the city don't even know that we have public housing, don't even know some of the challenges that we face. And I think that I've had the opportunity to meet with the Housing Authority Director, who has brought a lot of energy and excitement, I think, to the department. But there are some challenges, whether it be on the public safety aspect of it, or I think also looking at how many individuals have been able to leave public housing and get into permanent housing. How can we ensure that I guess the original concept of public housing had been kind of giving them a start so they can move on. But what we find, there's generations of individuals and families that are still living in public housing, which means we have partially failed in trying to get them to that next step and to providing the kinds of services. So it's my hope, and if you could just comment on how you see looking at this, at the Housing Authority, not just about providing safe, decent, affordable housing, which is critical, but how we move it to the next step to see that we can allow other people who potentially, whether it be the homeless families that we have, who need a place to stay for a short period of time, how you see kind of all of your experiences being utilized to address that problem. And hold my time, Mr. Costa.
Wow, what a big question.
Sorry.
Let me share with you a little bit of my experience in terms of new economics for women and what we've done in other organizations regarding family outcomes. New Economics for Women got started with the notion that you can't transform a community unless you transform the self-image and the aspirations of women because they are the mothers of a family. Specifically single parents because they're the most challenged, but both men and women. Their own self-aspirations have to be key to how they view success. The successes we have created at New, which have been astronomical, in many ways in transforming and changing the way we do business in a variety of ways is because we develop plans based on the image and the visions of the families themselves rather than what we think they should be doing. Once they see that there is success, then they know what is it that they want to, where they're going to go. And what we make our staffs accountable for is everything is that this is not about living in affordable housing. This is about developing an exit plan to affordable housing. So your economic goals have to be tied with a time plan and a plan. The other thing that's very unique about what we do is that we make that case management aspect part of the lease obligation of every family. So it's not just about lip service. It is about an exit plan within time, hopefully within 8 to 12 years they're out. As a result of that concentrated effort of making the families the ones that develop the plans and helping staff identify the resources to bring them and for the families themselves to execute those plans, they usually are out of there within 5 to 6 years. In less than 5 years, I can tell you, we have helped more than 250 families buy their first home. We can show you since the inception of Casa Loma, which is in CD1, the families have increased 50 to 80% above the median income for that census tract, whereas overall the county has only increased income by 12%. So there is something to be said for in terms of validating families and helping families understand what their status is and where they're going to go. The other thing I think that we need to be responsible for as a city is to know that we don't make systems accountable. We don't make people accountable for their lethargic customer service, for the lack of even follow through, and for not understanding what is it that we want to change in order to make better quality of life decisions. And that is where resources are. Where are we going to bring the resources to make a change? And I'm hopefully, that once I know where the Housing Authority wants to go, that we really have a vision to transform public housing, and it is no longer called public housing.
Right. And the nice thing, again, is when you see at some of the Hope 6 projects that have occurred and the changes that have been made, like in Councilmember Reyes's district that started many, many years ago, and with HUD, that there is such hope, and that's what Hope 6 was about, and looking at some of those areas, and in Wilmington, in Ms. Han's district, where they started there as well, mixing the homeownership and mixing the incomes, which is
And
so
it's about
critical.
creating wealth. And wealth doesn't mean money. It's really
That's correct.
about looking economic assets for families rather than social problems that can't get fixed because nobody really wants to deal with the problem.
Well, clearly, colleagues, I mean, I knew already she was going to be a great appointment, but her comments have, indicated how much she's going to be committed to looking at the whole picture. And the vision that's created by the Housing Authority is part of what you're going to help create and to help mold. And so I'm just so pleased, another great appointment by the mayor, and again, someone who is in my district too, a constituent. So, but thank you, Bea, for your willingness to take this on amidst a number of other responsibilities that you have.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Thank you very much. Mr. Cardenas is our next speaker. Do you have an announcement, Mr. Labange? Okay, Mr. Cardenas.
Okay. Thank you, Bea, for volunteering some more again and again and again. You've done wonderful things for the community, and you have a lot of knowledge and experience. One of the things I'd like to let the people of Los Angeles know, do you have an idea of how short we are on housing in the city of Los Angeles year by year or at this time?
We are supposed to be building, this is a couple-of-year-old statistics, but I believe 50,000 affordable units a year, and I think we build less than 1,000 or 2,000.
So the bottom line is,
we're
in
not
Los
going to get there very
Angeles,
soon.
we have a shortage of housing, period. Whether it's
Yes.
affordable or not or what have you, it's out of balance. And does the federal government assist us in any way on that effort, or we're just left to our own devices, or how do we go about doing that?
Well, there are a variety of avenues, not only bond issuances, but also tax credits through the state to help that, but that doesn't help us leverage the kind of housing. The other problem that we have is lack of land and availability of land to build. We're going to be very challenged in terms of whether building up really creates quality or building out. So I think there's a lot of urban planning issues that we need to discuss about that. But yes, the federal government has its share, the state has a little bit of share, but every taxpayer has to pay for it in some form or fashion.
But at the same time, sometimes when it comes to societal issues, for example, like housing, if we don't have enough housing, and if somebody were to say, well, I don't want my tax dollars to go to housing, well, inadvertently, some of the issues that result from that lack of housing, we end up having to use tax dollars to remedy other issues that might happen, correct? Like homelessness, or, for example, if the things that happen with children who are hopping from school to school because they keep losing their apartment or their place to live, that's a big problem. Studies have shown if a child goes through 5 schools in a school year, it's very likely that school year was kind of like a throwaway year, and that child is falling behind, and other issues ensue upon the public and upon our tax dollars, correct?
Correct.
So this is the kind of thing that if we took care of housing up front, if the commission was able to figure out ways to find solutions, and the council were able to support that, and the mayor were to do that, and we were to get Sacramento and Washington to use their tax dollars appropriately in Los Angeles so we can apply them better, we'd probably end up maybe saving our taxpayers some money in the long run?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think there's very little correlation between entities, I think, between the city, the county, as well as the state, and how we can be able to bring more efficiencies to the playing field of affordable housing. When you do housing, at least 30% of it is dealt with lawyers. There are 5 lawyers for every loan document that you have to put together practically. And there are ways to be more efficient on how we deliver the product. But I think more importantly, without good, decent housing, you pay the consequences for the kinds of behaviors that creates density and lack of safety for families. It's just everywhere. If there are no clean streets, people don't feel safe. If there's too much graffiti, people don't feel that the city's being listened, that they're listening. And the police feel very frustrated because things about parenting, when it really is about everybody being together and responsible to clean up the streets, not just the police, not just street cleaning, and not just DWP or whatever. It is all of us in it together. Every child should be our interest, and every child should feel safe in the city so they can thrive, go to school, and be successful and be taxpayers at the end. It's the exit to to all of that depends on our willingness to have the passion to be focused and deliver the services that we say we're going to deliver.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that explanation, because you've certainly let the people of Los Angeles know what I already know. You're very qualified, you're very passionate, you do care, and once again, thank you for giving up of your very valuable time for the people of Los Angeles on this very important issue. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Councilman.
Thank you, Mr. Cardenas. Our last speaker is Mr. Labange.
Well, thank you very much. Congratulations to you. And I believe you built a project on Columbia Street?
Yes.
And how long ago was that?
93?
93. I remember working with you
94.
on that a little bit there on that. It's wonderful. And it's changed Columbia Street, which is so important.
Yes, it was a
the
club,
First
I
District.
remember. The city
Right.
helped us take it over.
Good. One thing I'd like to ask you to do in your housing authority role, there was great success, I believe, and there was tremendous federal commitment when Aliso Pico was reborn. And I think we should look to reborn many of our facilities throughout Los Angeles City. And I know the commitment is not there, but the money's somewhere in the world of ours, in the world of the federal government. But to see the success which is taking place at Aliso Pico and duplicate that throughout the city and facilities throughout, that my colleagues work very hard on to try to upgrade and maintain. There's nothing more disappointing when I do go to an area that is under the authority of the Housing Authority, and I see in a stencil letter, no trespassing, section 348, and I see dumpsters bigger than the table that you sit at, and I think it doesn't have the place that it would have to be. I mean, there's a need to make that quality of life connection there, and I know we have a new planning director who's coming to the table after you, and quality of life is a big issue wherever it is, and I know there's severe challenges, and my colleagues who have these housing complexes within their districts have greater challenges than I do, but I would just want to mention those things and look and say, how can we get back on track? That took many, many years to do, and yet we're off track. Let's see if we get it back on track.
Thank you, Councilman. We
Thank
look
you.
forward to the challenge.
You betcha. Thank you very much, B.
Thank you very much, Mr. Labange, and thank you to all the colleagues who spoke on Ms. Stutzer's nomination. Seeing no other speakers, Madam Clerk, if you'll please prepare the roll and tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Congratulations
Thank
and
you,
welcome
Mr.
aboard.
President. Thank you,
very
Council.
much.
Bye-bye.
Look forward to your service. Next item, we can actually take if it's next in order, we could take the city official, but if not, we can dispose of the earlier items. What's next, Madam Clerk?
Do you want to, yes, item number 18 would be next, and that would be confirmation of the planning director.
Okay, Ms. Goldberg, would you like to
And-
come forward?
The committee report has been submitted, and also the salary recommendation was approved by the EERC.
Okay, the Chair of the Planning, Land Use, and Management Committee, Mr. Reyes, has up to 6 minutes to begin, please.
Thank you. Council President, welcome, Ms. Goldberg, Gail Goldberg. Colleague, you should know we've been through an extensive process. The mayor's office has gone through a process in which we were able to identify some of the leaders in this country that could stand up and accept this challenge. And in that process, with your support, we were able to go out into the community. We asked the neighborhood councils, we asked the stakeholders in our city, what do they want to see in a planning director? And that was documented through a CLA report, which you all have received. And it was part of the process. So we folded in as many types of issues, concerns, needs that the city has been essentially going through in the past years in trying to find a way to create a department that can be responsive to all the dynamic needs, indeed diverse needs of this city. And I believe we're very fortunate and lucky to have Ms. Goldberg with us today. She will speak a little bit about herself, but I want to thank her publicly for stepping up, making the transition from San Diego to Los Angeles. And with that, I'll stop here, and perhaps Ms. Goldberg would like to share a little about yourself, and we can open this up for questions, and as the President would like to.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Reyes, and President Garcetti, and members of the City Council. I am very pleased to be here. I am very excited about making Los Angeles my new home, and I am very excited about the opportunity and the challenge presented here. Just by way of a little background, I think that the things that were most appealing in my background that were relevant to the job in Los Angeles were several. One was the fact that in San Diego, we literally, about 5 years ago, reformed the planning department to create a very dynamic and responsive department. And I think that we successfully energized a lot of planners who had been sort of dispersed throughout the city. We brought them back together, created a very dynamic department that successfully, over the last 5 years, has created a new growth plan for the city of San Diego. You may have heard of the City of Villages strategy. This new growth plan was adopted by the City Council with the support of the communities. In San Diego, we are very much into participatory planning. We believe in community participation in planning, and I know that that was a concern of many of the folks that I have talked to in Los Angeles, so I want you to know that I'm very much a community person. I'm looking forward to not only working with the planning department, but working with the community, and I'm looking very forward to working with each of you to figure out what our policy priorities are and aligning those with planning. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Goldberg. Mr. Reyes, would you like to continue, or next speaker? Okay.
I do have some questions, but I'd like my colleagues to address.
Okay, great. Ms. Gruhl is next, to be followed by Mr. Zine.
Thank you. Colleagues, and I want to acknowledge Ed, which we did in the announcement of Ms. Goldberg's being appointed by the mayor for this position, because Ed took it seriously about the importance of public input as to what kind of individual that we would want to see as head of the planning department. Gail and I had an opportunity yesterday to spend a good hour, and I think we thought we probably could have spent 5 hours talking about the future of the city and the vision, and that planning should not be an oxymoron in the city, and the importance of educating through the neighborhood councils, Ms. Hahn, how important it is to make sure that everyone is on the same page about the knowledge of what's happening. We also talked about the importance of getting our community plans updated and the reports. I have some of my Studio City residents here, the reports on the specific plans that have never been done or updated. But what impressed me the most was kind of the down-to-earth feeling I got from Gail, and how important it was for the community's vision to be part of what the city's vision, and for their buy-in, and the experience that she has had in San Diego and doing that, and the reputation that she has. But also what we talked about was the important linkages between the planning department, the transportation department, the housing department in the city, and that kind of interaction was critical to have a successful planning department. In San Diego, why don't you just real quickly, and I'll hold my time, Mr. Garcetti, ask a question about how you had the interrelatedness between those departments in San Diego.
Well, we have created a very close alliance in San Diego with several departments, both economic development, redevelopment, housing. In fact, most of the housing policy issues that go forward have both the planning director's signature and the Housing Commission executive director's signature, because we work collectively on those things. We also were successful in San Diego as we brought the planning department back together. We were successful in convincing the city manager that an important component of planning was transportation planning, that planning roads and planning land use are linked in ways that cannot be really accomplished through two departments. So we were successful in bringing transportation planning into planning, and we have been enormously successful. The planning department's transportation planning folks have literally created the new street design manual for San Diego. They've created a pedestrian master plan, a bicycle plan, and they are now working on transportation demand management, but it's a wonderful alliance that works well.
And I know one of the other issues that we talked about is, again, how important the community is to the planning in the city of Los Angeles, and maybe if you could just share your thoughts about the role you see of not only neighbor councils, but residents associations to the future of the city.
I tell my planners in San Diego every day that it is not our mission to create plans. It's our mission to build communities. And in order to do that, the plans have to have two important characteristics. They must be owned by the community and the folks who live there. They must represent the vision of the people who live in that community. And two, they must be implementable. A developer needs to be able to pick up that plan and have the tools in place, the regulatory tools, the regulations, the zoning in place to really make it happen. So I believe that the community input is an absolutely integral part of it. I think you cannot be successful in a planning process unless the community is a part of that process. No one knows a neighborhood like the people who live there.
Most definitely. You got applause.
Many of these people have already called me.
Yeah.
I have many appointments.
Well, we are looking forward to you visiting my district, and I don't think I offered this yesterday, and Ed's been offered this. We'll have him out there, but as to come out to my equestrian community and ride on a horse with us, maybe we'll get Ed and Gail out there to ride. But I did share with Gail, Ed, that you were the first chair of Plum in 25 years that brought the Plum Committee out into the community, and that first one was for my equestrian community, and that was fabulous. And since then, you have, developed that even more so to have that involvement. But we did talk about, and I used Jane Blumenfeld's name quite, I guess, often to talk about, because she and I have had conversations about whether it be Planning 101, mini courses that we can give to our neighborhood councils, and not on another day where there's where they have to choose between different things that are being provided on a training day, but really maybe 3 or 4 Saturdays where we say, come in and learn about this. So very excited about that opportunity. I do want to take a minute to acknowledge Mark Winograd, who held the fort, so to speak, during these last several months, and thank you for, I think, making some real good decisions in that interim and giving Gail kind of a jump start as she begins her job here. I'm 14 seconds over, so I will end, but Gail, look forward to many more opportunities for you to come into the community and for us to dialogue about where the city is going in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Gruhl. We have 3 more speakers as of now. Mr. Zine to be followed by Ms. Hahn and Mr. Cardenas. We have 3 speaker cards in, but just a point of information, it would require a motion to hear those since we've had public hearing. Mr. Zine.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
A pleasure seeing you again. I was at the news conference that the mayor held, announcing you, unveiling you to the community, and it was a jam-packed room. Planning is a huge issue in Los Angeles, as you know. San Diego's had a lot of economic problems, but I haven't heard any planning problems down there. They seem to have that well in focus. I represent the Southwest San Fernando Valley. We have changing demographics in the city, and the Southwest San Fernando Valley has single-family residents, median price over $500,000, up to the millions of dollars south of Ventura Boulevard, and we have an ICO that's come into place regarding Warner Center, where the developers, and I'm not going to make negative comments about the developers, but they go where the money is. And right now the money is in condos and apartments, and there's this move to build without the other components of the infrastructure, the other components of, you mentioned transportation. We've become dysfunctional when it comes to transportation in the city of Los Angeles. 2 hours to commute to work is not acceptable, and we don't really have a good public transit system in the city as we see in other parts of the country. When you talk about linking, we have a DOT, we have planning, we have building safety, we have all these components, and they seem to be separate islands. So when I implement a control ordinance in Warner Center to try and bring a sense of balance and control, and not to destroy the single-family residence, because I think that's a vital part of a village, of a community. How do you, as the planning director, pull this all together? How do you take those other general managers, the neighborhood councils, the homeowner groups, the builders, the developers, all these special interests, and you as that person with that experience and knowledge, sit down and say, okay, this is what we're going to do, so we don't have what we have in Los Angeles. It's a hopscotch. It's a checkerboard, and the poor people live here, the rich people live here, and then the middle class falls in between. How do you, as a planning director, pull that all together?
Well, I can't tell you how exactly I will propose to do it in Los Angeles because I need to learn a lot about the different stakeholders. But I will tell you in San Diego that we initiated a process that was very different from anything we had ever done before. We had citizen committees of stakeholders that guided the development of our City of Villages strategy, where we brought the development community, the design community to the table to help us make certain that the plans we created would be plans that could be picked up and be developed. We at the same time had a huge community outreach effort where all communities were engaged in every step in developing that strategy, so that when we came to the end, it was a strategy that they believed in and that they understood. But from the city's perspective, and I think this is the question you're getting to, we too had sort of a history of not a lot of cooperation and interaction with the different departments and agencies. One of the things that we did, and this was guided by our city manager, keeping in mind at that time in San Diego, we had a city manager form of government. We now are a strong mayor. But our city manager literally directed an effort and made sure that it happened where all of the heads of the agencies and the departments that would be impacted by this plan were part of what we called a technical advisory team. that met on a monthly basis to look at the strategy and talk about how it impacted each of these agencies and departments and the role that they would play. What were the obstacles that they needed to get out of the way? So I think to think about creating those kinds of teams, which I believe now in this city are possible. I think creating those kinds of teams of the heads of the agencies and the departments to make sure that the work is coordinated, I think is probably the best strategy to start with.
Okay, I appreciate that, because I know that there's been a lot of frustration, a lot of people for a long period of time, and our mayor has transportation is a major issue, development of residential components. But when I think of a residential component, I don't think of a condo or an apartment. I still think of what a lot of families want is an affordable house with a yard, with a garage, where their children can play, where they can put their motorcycle. And I also invite you to the valley where we don't have horses, but we have Harley Davidsons. We have a lot of motorcycles out there.
I'm a little worried, since my last bicycle ride resulted in a broken wrist. The motorcycle and the horse riding is a little frightening to me,
right,
but I'm
okay.
willing to take it on.
All right, okay, we'll offer that opportunity for you also. So I wish you well with it.
Thank you.
I know you've got that experience, and welcome to welcome home to Los Angeles.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I'd like to invite Councilmember Hahn, followed by Councilmember Cardenas.
Thank you, and congratulations for this appointment. I think this is one of the most important jobs in Los Angeles. I really enjoyed it when I came down to San Diego a couple years ago, and we toured Citrus Heights, and I was very impressed that there was a blighted area, and what was accomplished through putting in public facilities, joint use opportunities, really made a community. And I love what you said today about the mission is not just to create plans, but create communities. And I've also loved hearing you talk about how you get the community involved in the planning process. Those are some of the issues that I care a lot about. Maybe talk a little bit about that Citrus Heights experience and how you see that maybe fitting in different neighborhoods in Los Angeles. Hold my time, please.
Yes, well, City Heights is about a 7 or 8 block area in the city of San Diego, in what was maybe 7 or 8 years ago one of the highest crime areas, one of the poorest communities, one of the most diverse communities. I believe that at that time the folks had indicated that there were something like 45 languages spoken in the elementary school there. So this was a community that had very few resources and few opportunities for private investment. A philanthropist in San Diego, Saul Price, and we are fortunate in San Diego to have a number of philanthropists who have took on community building as their sort of philanthropic effort. Saul Price decided that he would invest in building a community, and he worked with the city to create a project in this 7-block area that included a community police station with a gymnasium that was shared by the community kids and the police officers. It had an educational center that had extensive both elementary schools connected with the colleges so that they had very special sort of assistant teaching programs. There was a community center, a library, a wonderful recreation facility with swimming pools and tennis courts. And Saul Price started taking old housing apartments in that area, refurbishing them. And one of his main objectives, which I think is interesting as a community experiment, was to make sure that the improvements that accrued in this community came to the benefit of the people who lived there, that we didn't gentrify and push out people. So apartments and new homes were offered first to community members. Saul provided a silent second program where he gave money to people for down payments and offered opportunities for those people in the community to literally pay off those seconds with community service. And so what we created was a very dynamic community where the community actually was the guiding force. We now have a community where private investment has come and is literally making a difference. We have a Ralph's supermarket, we have a Starbucks in this community. It has made a huge difference, and I think the people in that community would say that it has benefited them specifically, and they're still there.
I'm very encouraged by that, and I would love to take you on a tour of some areas in my district where I think something innovative like that would be perfect. I'm sure you sat through the Housing Authority appointment earlier, and some of our housing developments would be perfect opportunities to create a community that had a library and a new gymnasium and parks and open space and refurbished, you know, old dilapidated housing projects. I would love for you to look at that. I don't know if you've had an opportunity to look at any of our plans for our redevelopment of our waterfront in Los Angeles. We actually have a waterfront in Wilmington and San Pedro, and we're about to enter a very historic agreement between the Port of Los Angeles, our Community Redevelopment Agency, and the Planning Department to begin working on connecting the revitalization of our downtown San Pedro to our waterfront. And I would love to hear you talk about how that might not only revitalize the harbor area, but be a big draw, certainly coming from San Diego. Right. Los Angeles has been very disconnected from its port, from its waterfront. And some thoughts on how important redeveloped waterfront is to the tourist industry in a particular city. Hold my time, please.
Yeah, while I have not had an opportunity to look at the plans yet in Los Angeles, I can tell you that the recent efforts in San Diego to create alliances between the Port District, the County of San Diego, the City of San Diego, the Redevelopment Agency, with a strong presence from planning, I think has been very instrumental in creating a downtown plan that both respects the waterfront uses, the working waterfront uses, and takes full advantage of the wonderful tourist opportunities that are presented on the waterfront. We have not completed our plan. There is much left to be done in San Diego, but the Alliance, I believe, has been instrumental in moving things along very much more quickly and in getting the necessary resources. The more partners you can have at the table, the better able you are to get the money you need to do the work.
You have a lot of things to look at, but I would love for you to take a look at those waterfront plans and see if you can participate in that. You know, we had Urban Land Institute come out to the San Pedro about 3 years ago, and one of the things they encouraged us to do in terms of our revitalization was to build housing in downtown San Pedro. I really took them at their word, and we've been able to attract about $140 million in investments in downtown San Pedro. We've got about 1,000 units either happening or in the pipeline for downtown San Pedro. ULI recommended that San Pedro was way behind the rest of the city. We should be building 3,000 units. 1,000 is already seeming a little aggressive to some of the community members. Maybe you can talk a little bit about your experience in San Diego and how you brought the community along in terms of the participation and planning process for building housing in a downtown urban core.
Well, I think I'm a big believer in providing wonderful examples. And I think that when communities have an opportunity to visit a neighborhood or a downtown that feels good to them, that feels comfortable to them, when they come into that community and they see the density around them and they have a comfortable feeling in it, I think it makes them much more likely to think about density in their own neighborhoods or in other areas. I think the thing that enticed people downtown to San Diego was our wonderful gas lamp, where people come to visit great restaurants. The fact that we have now in our downtown a ballpark where people from all the suburban areas come to visit. It gave them a reason to come to downtown, and I think the experience they had when they came downtown was very pleasant. That the downtown is built around several neighborhoods. and that each of those neighborhoods are distinctive, but that there is a cohesive plan to create a very human-scale pedestrian environment. And I think the trick with density is to build it in a way that gives it a human feeling and a pedestrian sort of scale. And I think that we've had several neighborhoods in San Diego where we were able to get density and that people from throughout the community love. And it's that experience, I think, that makes it easier for us to do it. So great examples.
Thank you, and good luck. It's going to be very exciting to work with you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hahn. Mr. Cardenas, followed by Mr. Garcetti, Mr. Padilla, Mr. Labange, Mr. Weezer, Mr. Parks.
Thank you very much. You have a wonderful task at hand. I think it's a great city. I think there's a lot of work to do when it comes to the planning. I've been on the planning committee for a few years now, and the chairman has certainly expressed his concerns about the department, and so that would mean that you would have a lot of work to do. I'm sure you're up to it, but I would like to ask you a couple of questions about, is Los Angeles a city that is growing in population, or a city that's stagnating, or a city that's going to have less people next month, next year, 10 years from now? My time, please.
All of California is growing, and Southern California specifically. So I would expect that Los Angeles is growing probably at the same rate that we are in San Diego. We are growing a community of Southern California.
Okay, I just had a senator from Chicago, Illinois here for a couple of days, wonderful guy, and I kept asking him, what do you think about our winter? I just got a smile, and he said, I'm glad I'm here. And I think a lot of people do end up here because of a lot of reasons, and being such a wonderful climate is one of them. So we are going to grow for a lot of reasons.
We are going to grow. I think that for the first time in California, we're seeing that we're having a natural increase in population. So our growth is not only that we're having more babies, there are more children being born here, people are living longer, but we also have a sort of probably consistent growth in foreign migration, and because our economy is good, our domestic migration will continue to grow as people seek the jobs that are being produced in Southern California.
There's a term that politicians use, and policymakers and policy advisors like yourself, and that's called smart growth. Can you give us an example of what smart growth is?
Right. Smart growth, while a lot of people talk about it as one way of growing, I think it's probably a survival strategy for those communities where you already are running out of available land to build on greenfield development. So when you have a scarce supply of land, smart growth is a strategy of efficiently using the land that you have left, trying to place growth in areas where you can do compact development, where you can provide a mix of uses, where people can have a very pedestrian orientation and walk to services. It also provides more of a neighborhood feel, but it also is about giving transportation options. So smart growth is about having other options for moving around other than cars. I guess I would add another thing to smart growth. I think that smart growth also has to leave a community better than when the project was built or when the density was built. It needs to make a neighborhood better for the people who were already there, or it's not very smart to me.
Yeah, you've touched on some competing interests just in that one statement. What's a transportation corridor, and what does that have to do with planning? A city like ours, when we say transportation corridor, to us policymakers and policy advisors, it means something much more than just a few words. What's a transportation corridor?
Typically, and in every city and in every region, transportation corridors are defined either by your regional planning agency like SCAG or by the city. But typically, there is a hierarchy of transportation corridors. It might be your metro lines, it could be your bus rapid transit lines. But in each case, you need to figure out what kind of density do you need to literally support that transit use, to make certain that you have enough people living within a prescribed distance from your transportation corridor to support it.
Hold on, with all due respect, you said the community supporting that transportation corridor, but it goes both ways. That transportation corridor is supporting the city.
Absolutely, and I was going to
And the
get to
community.
that. Absolutely. It is an opportunity for many of us, like myself, who don't want to be in a car every day or sometimes can't be in a car every day. It's an opportunity for people to have a living choice that gets them close to another transportation option, either the bus or your metro, in order to get you to work or to other communities.
One of the things I'd like to ask you some advice. What do you suggest that you do as a policy advisor, us as policymakers? You already expressed very clearly that having open public forums about what should happen, when it comes to planning, should take place. I agree with that wholeheartedly. But what do you suggest when we get a community organization or some folks who say no, no, no? For example, say you have a Ventura Boulevard or a Van Nuys Boulevard, and it's already zoned clearly by any zoning standards of any kind, by the actual zoning in that area already, by the rights of that particular owner that have been vested on that property and for years and years and years, when, for example, it says you're allowed to go to 42 feet, you're allowed to have a certain amount of density, you're already zoned for a certain thing, and a community says, no, we don't even want by right. And yet even that by right isn't even up to the standard of the transportation corridors and the smart growth that you just described. What do you recommend we do?
I think what you have just described is an example of a plan being created without... Yeah.
Time.
Is an example of a plan being created without that without one of those two essential things that I talked about, which is the support of a community. I think it is problematic if you have plans in place that are not supported by the community where that plan is. I think that one of the things that we all have to do a lot better job of is working with the communities and working with education to talk about what the planning concepts are and to really get to a point where the communities understand what the density will mean or what the mix of uses will mean. It may result in the communities having the same objections. It may. But it may not. There may be opportunities if you literally can sit down with communities and literally talk about what will be the result of this plan. And that would be the first step that I would want to do, to make certain that the communities had a clear understanding of what the results of the plan might be. Then if we still have a lot of plans in place that aren't supported by the community, I think that's another policy discussion that we're all going to have. I believe there are lots of communities who are open to change and revitalization, and my own view is that those are the places that we need to concentrate on, is putting density in those communities or revitalizing those communities where the communities are prepared to move forward and want the change. That's how we create, as I mentioned before, the wonderful examples that will help other folks see and maybe understand better.
It's interesting you should say that. That last statement is certainly at the crux of whether or not we're going to have policy in this city of a inclusionary zoning. Because what you just described, unfortunately, the very last part of that is communities that have an excessive amount of certain kind of housing and other communities that don't even have even close to their fair share of that housing, but those other communities say, no, 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 we like it just the way it is. Now, if y'all want to do that kind of stuff, you go do it elsewhere, but not here. Same city, same taxpayer base, same general fund, same everything, but you have that imbalance. So I think we stumbled on one of the big issues that we sometimes, unfortunately, still have at the end of the discussions, at the end of the meetings, at the end of the dialogue, at the end of what our wants and needs are back and forth, and at the end of the demands upon a community that maybe none of us have control over. So you have a wonderful task ahead of you, and I'm glad that you had the experience that you do have, because we're going to be crossing some of these roads in many, many parts of this city, and you're going to be in the middle of it.
Thank you very much,
Congratulations.
Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Cardenas. Mr. Garcetti.
Thank you very much, Madam President, and welcome aboard almost your nomination, and I want to thank the mayor for a great choice and been listening to the dialogue here, and I think that we're going to be in very good hands. I want to share a couple stories with you, put a couple things on your agenda. I think you've answered most questions today, and I know this will be part of an ongoing conversation, not just a hearing today. In my experience in looking at the department, for the previous 4 years I've served on the Budget Committee, Budget and Finance Committee, and every year we ask more of the Planning Department. And every year the Planning Department has been telling us we can't do that with existing resources. Yet when it comes time to budget time, when other departments have kind of hustled for more and asked for more, and sometimes we can do it and sometimes we can't, but at least that's out there. We have a pretty amazing storm in that I talk to people in the development community and they say, charge us more if you can actually hire more. We have people here who understand that, people who are residents who understand that. We're willing to enact that, and yet we never quite get those proposals. We're beginning to, and Mr. Reyes has been very aggressive about this too, but to help that backlog at a time when this is a real driver of the economy. So one of the things I would impress upon you is lobby us, be aggressive with us. Tell us what your needs are. Tell us what you can't do, but tell us what you need in order to get to the place where you can do something. Because all of us want to see red tape cut. We don't want to see bad planning expedited. We want to make sure public process happens in the right way. But once things are approved, then it shouldn't hit a second barrier, and I think there's a feeling that sometimes it still does. We've got great people in the planning department. It's really figuring out how we can get the resources to support them to make that even more aggressive. Ms. Gruhl talked about some of the community plan updates. There's one that's still out there, I wanted to put, which is the Hollywood Community Plan. It's the last one to be done. It's the only one in the city that hasn't been updated at all. I know people are now asking for second updates, but just it's the one that's out there that's underway, but I think it's a very important part. And it's a snapshot in some ways of what Los Angeles City, or many parts of Los Angeles City, will look like in terms of density, an investment of a transportation infrastructure, the most red line stops, billions of dollars that have been put in place. Now we're going to be able to see that in a community where people already live. Parking management. I know you talked about transportation planning. There's really, I think, throughout the city there's plenty of parking. I know a lot of people don't feel this way, but in many places there's plenty of public and private parking when you add up all the parking spaces that are there. But where we can look as a city at being more aggressive, and the planning department in helping us to manage in a given neighborhood those parking spaces. I'll return to Hollywood, for instance. Between Highland and La Brea, we probably have 7,000 spaces in a combination of public and private facilities, but some of those buildings are closed at night, some of them aren't open, some of them are managed by different companies and different entities. If we could figure out a way to do public-private partnership around parking, I think that will be a very useful thing for our city and for our neighborhoods to have what they need. Now the flip side is, I hope that you will be able to work with folks in the development community who still bring sometimes a suburban model to Los Angeles, especially in the urban core, of how they're going to do a drugstore, retail space. We're going through these discussions right now with somebody across from the Red Line at Hollywood and Vine, in which they want to overpark because they say the banks won't fund us unless we overpark retail. We're literally right across the street from the Red Line. And whether it's a combination of what companies like FlexCar are doing, and we're working to have spaces throughout the city where that can encourage people to have shared car facilities, bikes, pedestrian stuff, or allowing people to use that public transit. It's another thing, and I know I'm kind of downloading a long list with you.
And you're 36 seconds over.
And I'm 36 seconds over, so I will conclude with that. The one other thing that I'd ask of you too is see where we can on green space as well in the city as a planning department, really work more aggressively. I think there's not a lot of discussion that happens between Rec and Parks and the planning department on that, and I think our green space planning and that element of the general plan is something that really there's been a lot of political work on. Now it's time to do the planning work too. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
You certainly have my support.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Padilla.
Thank you, Madam Chair, colleagues. I rise. I really want to support this confirmation, but I got a call just yesterday from a gentleman by the name of Jim Madaffer. There was a council member in San Diego saying, Alex, please vote no, because we don't want to lose her. So I'm really torn here, because Jim I consider a friend, but really.
I appreciate it. I've worked closely with Mr. Madaffer on his work not only in San Diego but with the League of Cities and the statewide effort. It will be difficult to leave the city. I've been very fortunate to have some wonderful support from the city council members there.
No, and he's tremendously supportive of you and wishes you all the best as you tackle the planning challenge that is Los Angeles, and what may be their losses, from everything I hear and understand, certainly are gains. So I want to congratulate you on the nomination. I have a feeling it's going to go well today here during our votes, but like so many of my colleagues, wanted to chime in with a couple of sort of district issues that I'd love to show you as you settle in. First of all, for the Sylmar community, similar to areas of Mr. Garcetti's district that have for years and years gone without an update to their community plan. It's been long overdue. It's in the budget this fiscal year, and so that's underway now for the community of Sylmar, which is really at the northern limits of the city of Los Angeles, an area that experienced tremendous population growth. And we really struggle to strike that balance between embracing new, smart, strategic development with respect to the current residents there that enjoy, in many cases, not just open space, but what very few outsiders know about Los Angeles, equestrian home properties. So I look forward to sharing that with you as well. And then also, in case you're already starting to tally your list, there's a hospital in Mission Hills, near the 5 and the 118 freeway, known as Holy Cross Hospital, that is proposing to go significant expansion there. And while usually health care is not part of a planning conversation, we all know that access to health care and the capacity of our health care system, whether it's for day-to-day services for our population, which continues to grow and age, but also in an area that is a center point for a lot of earthquake and seismic activity. Post 9/11, we're also looking at homeland security and our capacity to respond to man-caused emergencies, that sort of thing. Definitely want to work closely with you to not only look at hospital expansions, but from a planning perspective, make sure that it's all done appropriately and respectful to its surrounding community. So again, we're giving you quite a laundry list today.
Yes.
We haven't confirmed it yet, but that's just minutes away. So congratulations on my behalf, and greetings on behalf of Jim Modaffar.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Padilla. Mr. Labange, followed by Mr. Huizar and Mr. Parks.
Ms. Goldberg, welcome.
Thank you so much.
Tell us about your youth.
About my youth?
Right.
I grew up in San Bernardino. So I am a Southern California girl.
San Bernardino High?
No, Pacific High.
Okay.
My husband went to San Bernardino High, so if that's meaningful, we've covered all the bases in San Bernardino.
Oh, good.
Yes.
And that's an old town. They got a little main street in San Bernardino.
Yes, they did. That actually is no longer in the downtown at all. They really need some better planning in San Bernardino.
I remember when I was a child, we all go to a big family I came from, and we drive out there, and there's a big, beautiful park right in the center of the town, and we picnic on a little, like a Sunday ride.
Yes.
But I think it's important to find out where someone grows up and see their images. How long do you live in San Diego?
I moved to San Diego in 1972, and so I have been in San Diego for quite a long time. Yes. I was a young mother when I moved to San Diego in 1972, and for the first few years in San Diego, I was a stay-at-home mom, very involved in civic activities, and in midlife, I lost my husband and ended up going back to college. So I became a junior planner with the city of San Diego 17 years ago, and have had a really wonderful opportunity presented to me by the city of San Diego. They've given me wonderful, challenging projects, and it's been a very exciting a few years for me in the city of San Diego. And so I'm sort of looking forward to recreating and having some similar experiences here in Los Angeles. I have 2 grown children. A young attorney who works for the Legal Aid Society, the Employment Law Center in San Francisco, and then my young capitalist son is a vice president of marketing for a high-tech company in Portland, Oregon. They both live in very urban environments, and I'm very proud of them.
Well, it's great. It's wonderful. The children, I have younger children, 7 and 11, and we come to San Diego on times and love the San Diego Wild Animal Parks, love the San Diego Zoo of San Diego. You know Ellie Oppenheim?
I know Ellie very well. She's a
Right.
good friend of mine who also was a general manager here.
Right, so Mr. Padilla, I think to answer your question earlier, I think that's the payback. When we send LA to San Diego, we get you back. I mean, that's a fair first-round draft. You mentioned the ballpark. I think that's been great to revitalize that. We have Staples Center, which really has led the effort to revitalize it. So you know a little about sports. You know who hit the longest home run in professional baseball history?
I don't, but I suspect you're going to tell me.
Well, he's a San Diego native, Ted Williams.
Oh, Ken Williams.
And how long was the home run? It was, he played for the old Pacific Coast League. He hit it right out of the park, hit a northbound Santa Fe freight. So the distance was San Diego to Los Angeles, the longest home run hit in professional sport history. Ted Williams, years and years ago. Tommy Lasorda told me that, so you know it's truth. But I just want to talk, Los Angeles is a city of great neighborhoods. And challenges all over it. Density should go near transit line, all that. I like what they did around the waterfront, which is so important, because we have a great waterfront in Los Angeles. Our river is coming back, and that's another vision to look at that, where it could be, to balance it out. Film industry is very important to Los Angeles and supporting the film industry. 250,000 people are involved with the film industry, and that's important to balance that out, those needs there. It's a good projects. HPOZs, Historic Preservation Overlay Zones. Tell me a little about San Diego's HPOZs.
Well, in San Diego, the
You
historic...
hold my time, Madam President.
The Historic Resource Program is in the Planning Department, so we do support and staff our Historic Resources Board. We have established historic resource districts throughout San Diego. We're currently surveying our entire city as we speak to determine of those buildings that are in our city that are over 50 years of age, which ones of them might be potentially historic. Historic resources in San Diego is a very big issue. It's a very important issue. It's very important to neighborhoods to try to maintain the distinct quality and character of the neighborhoods that they have, so it is a very big issue there.
It's a very big issue here and throughout other neighborhoods throughout the city, so we hope we get support. If an issue that I brought up recently is, unfortunately, there are some crime in an urban area, and there was a violent crime at a nightclub in the Cahuenga Pass where someone went to that club, left the club, there was a shooting. Unfortunately, they were killed in the shooting. And I thought, well, what happens? The detectives come out, they mark the thing out, they investigate it, but what really happens? And a proposal that I have is to ask the Planning Department and the zoning administrator within 45 days of that unfortunate situation, that within 45 days of those 45 days, they call for a hearing, which brings in building and safety, fire department, police, the local patrol officer, the vice unit, and look at the establishment to see if there's anything could do to correct that. Would you support that kind of concept?
Well, I think there are certainly some planning techniques that can be used that help neighborhoods be safer to the extent that you create neighborhoods that are vibrant, that have a lot of people on the street and eyes on the street. You have the potential for a safer neighborhood. You can see that in the development of the downtown in San Diego, and I suspect you can see it in the development of the downtown here in Los Angeles, that as you have more people living in an area and on the street, as you have more familiar people that you see on the street, the safer the streets are. And there's certainly techniques with commercial development that you can use to help.
To be more specific, it takes 6 months to get a regulation hearing, but I would like to ask if and I will get support, hopefully from Mr. Weston, if a violent crime occurs, that we really stop and say, what happened? Because how horrible does that family feel that their son or daughter went to some nightclub, some permitted establishment with a police commission for approval, and they go out and some violence takes place there? That's the kind of focus that I'd like to...
Mr. LaBonge, I think that it certainly could have value to take a look and to see if there are land use choices that can be made or design choices that could be made that could improve the situation. I think that's certainly a valuable exercise to go through.
Thank you. In some of your remarks, I just want to say I like what we talked about staff, because you can't do it alone. I know we can't do it alone as elected officials with our staffs. You have a staff in the planning department to energize them, to make them feel important, because if you go to the steps of City Hall here and put all the public employees in classification on there, the planners, if they make the right decisions in the beginning, it prevents some of the other problems
Right.
in the ongoing process of livable neighborhoods. Los Angeles is a city of great neighborhoods, great people, the most diverse city in the world, and we certainly welcome you here, and anything I could do, or my staff, Renee Weitzer, who's my chief of staff, and also our planning chief, please let me know. Thank you, Madam President, and
Thank
Ms.
you.
Goldberg, thank you. Welcome to Los Angeles.
Thank you, Mr. Labange, and you had 7 seconds left, so that was great. Mr. Weissar, followed by Mr. Parks, followed by Mr. Weiss.
Thank you. Let me thank Mr. Labange for the questions on your background, because it's important. I think when we meet Ms. Goldberg, on one-on-one, we ask those questions, but as she's getting introduced to not only the council, but people who are viewing this, it's so important that they understand what your perspective is, and a lot of that does come from where a person grew up, where they went to high school. I know that's important to you, Mr. Labange, so thank you, Mr. Labange, for doing that. And I enjoyed meeting you yesterday. It's a pleasure to know you and to the prospects of working with you. I'm very excited about that. I enjoyed our conversation about joint planning and use with schools. We talked about how the school district right now is the largest developer in the city of Los Angeles, with building 160 new schools, just opened up 50 last year. And oftentimes when I was at the school district, we talked about going to San Diego, because people were mentioning they're doing it right down there. They're really making joint use work. It was difficult. There's some few examples that we wanted to see. I never did get the pleasure of go down there to see that, but I know you understand that full well. And throughout our discussion, I really enjoyed listening from you about the importance of community and involvement and participation in planning. And I think we could do a lot more of that here in the city of Los Angeles. And certainly downtown Los Angeles, where we are looking at many different separate developments occur that I think are going to have some long-lasting effect, not only for the downtown area, but the whole region, not only Los Angeles, but the whole region, and the importance for us to make those connected and desirable for more pedestrians and for more families. So I'm excited about the prospects. I'll keep my comments brief here, because I know I'm have a lot more time to work with you in my role as a plum member, also issues in my district, and general things such as updating the master plan and making sure that we do have more participation by community residents in that process. Welcome, and it's a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Parks, followed by Mr. Weiss, and then we'll have Mr. Reyes.
Thank you, Madam President. Good morning. How are you?
Good morning.
Nice seeing you again after the press conference. I just wanted to ask a couple of questions.
Sure.
In dealing with, you've had some time to look at planning department, and wanted to find out what is some of your thumbnail evaluation of issues that would be most relevant to you as you move into that job?
Well, I've had an opportunity to read both the audit of the planning department, and I actually have had some conversations with the person who did the audit, and I'm going to have more conversations with them. I've also had a brief opportunity to meet with the management staff in the planning department, and I believe that we have an atmosphere that is prepared for change. I think that there is a new excitement in the planning department. I think they are prepared to begin to look at how we can organize the planning department in a way that can effectively and efficiently process the case projects, but also focus on long-range planning and community involvement. I hear a lot of excitement around that. I'm very interested in working with them to set a vision for the department that's separate from the vision for a city, but where it is as a department we're going, to give them the resources and the training that they need to do that. I hope to create the kind of atmosphere where people can do their very best work. And then I believe in accountability and in holding people accountable for that work. So I believe they're all on board to do that. I believe they're very excited at the prospect of re-energizing and sort of redefining the planning functions.
Okay, thank you, and I appreciate you commenting on casework versus long-range planning. One of the concerns I've had, and I think we've mentioned it in many of the older districts of the city, that appear, if you plotted all of the projects in planning department over the last decade, you'd see a significant number on the west and north side of the city, a few in the middle, and the southeast part of the city. And I know since I've been here for 3 years, it's been very difficult to figure out how that workload was assigned, and how do you get to these projects in the sense that some of these planning tools, whether they're ICOs or whatever, in some part of the city are non-existent. and many of the things are by right, and so you can't stop people from building almost anything they wish to. But I'm just wondering how you might begin to look at the assignment of projects, because sometimes it appeared it was first in, first out, last in, last out, and whether you had one project and someone had 15, you just happened to fall
Yeah, and
within
that's
some
something
cycle.
that I haven't had an opportunity to really spend time talking to the planners about, but that I will. I think a major focus for us will be to create a work program that is better aligned with the policy priorities of the council and the mayor and the citizens of Los Angeles. We're going to have to really try to figure out what are the long-range projects that we want to take on. Right now, I don't know that we have an organizational structure that really supports the long-range projects, so we're going to have to do that. But I think we are initiating a lot of the recommendations from the audit to help us get through the permit processing issues a little better, and that, of course, is going to be a major focus. We can't do really good planning if we're not organized in a way that will allow it to happen.
I think through the efforts of Mr. Reyes' last budget, there are positions added to your department to help on some of these workload and project issues, and again, setting the priorities, and that's something I hope that...
And I understand that there has been hirings recently, so we have a large number of new planners on board that are going to give us, I think, a lot more capacity to do the things that you would like to see.
As you get your arms around that, I'd
Yeah.
really appreciate some indication of how you might be distributing that workload, particularly by council districts. So we get
Absolutely.
some indication. The other issue...
And Mr., I'll ask you to conclude. You're about 1 minute over.
Oh, I didn't ask you to hold my time, did I?
You did not. But
Oh,
I'll
okay.
hold,
Well,
we'll
I'll
we'll
just
let you
put-
ask your last question.
Is it my absolute last one in life or just today?
I'd like to say, no, I'm kidding.
Let me ask you my last question today. On dealing with older communities that are already built out, what are some of your suggestions in dealing with the whole planning agenda as it relates to beginning to remake those communities over time? And to give you an indication of why it's interest of mine is that it took 10 years to get the Crenshaw specific plan done, and many of the things I'm fearful that once it's approved may have to be revamped because time has changed. But what are some of the ideas you have about built-out communities, older communities that have not had the benefit of planning tools over the last
I think you have to go into the older communities and start with the people who live there and have lengthy conversations about what are the things in that older community that they love, that they want to maintain, that give it the character and the specific attributes that they love, and then start talking to them about what are the things that they think might be missing in their community, what are their hopes and aspirations for the communities. And I like to challenge community members to think ahead a little bit. Will the community still work for you 10 years from now? Or if your mom needs to move to the community, is there a place for her? Or your children want to stay in this wonderful community, to really challenge them to sort of look ahead and think about what are the specific changes that would need to happen to create an even more wonderful neighborhood for them than they have at the time. And so I think you begin with just those very real conversations with people about their own experiences and their aspirations before you start talking about replanning it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Parks, Mr. Weiss.
Thank you, Madam President, and welcome again. Do not hold my time, Ms. Gruhl, whatever you do. Do not hold my time. We need to do something else. Second. In my 1 minute, Ms. Goldberg, it was a pleasure having you in Planning Committee yesterday. Today, with Ms. Gruhl, the chair of the Transportation Committee, as a second, I've introduced the motion that we talked about yesterday in committee. This motion would transfer the planning elements of the Transportation Department into the Planning Department, because there's nothing more frustrating to elected officials, to developers, and to community members than this bifurcation, this unneeded bifurcation between planning and transportation, where the left hand and the right hand are unconnected. Hopefully this will be something that will come along in the next month or so once we look at all the details, and it will give you additional tools to deal with what is going to be the most challenging part of your exercise. We've all talked about smart growth and this growth and that growth in villages and communities. It's all about traffic in LA. It's all about traffic. Your department historically has not had the tools and authority to deal with the traffic issues. This will hopefully give you some more. So I hope
you.
to have your support of expanding your authority.
You have my support.
Thank you.
Thank you.
135, sorry.
Thank you. Before I go to Mr. Reyes, Mr. Parks has pushed his button again.
Thank you. This is my final question.
Yes.
I just wanted to ask you you mentioned transportation corridors. Last budget, we put about $500,000 in your budget, in your department budget, to begin to look at the planning process along the Expo line. The concern that I have is that as we've gone through the EIR process, many of the issues such as economic development, parking, housing, whatever might go along that line, are not part of the environmental impact. And one of the issues that we think is very critical, because they'll be going out to a design build contract fairly soon, is to begin to activate some of those funds for specific planning along that transportation corridor, so we at least have a blueprint of what should be there, even if the MTA and others have not created the funding for it. And that's the one item we think is very, very critical.
I will look at that, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Parks. Mr. Reyes, I know I mentioned we had 3 cards and whether or not we could have open public hearing just briefly.
I'd like to ask the body if we can open up public hearing to allow the speakers to come to the podium and give their input, and then I'd like to close it after that. So,
And my apologies, I see Mr. Weston has pushed his button. So before we do the public hearing, ask Mr. Weston, and then we'll do the public hearing.
please, by all means.
I purposely tried to wait to be last. I want to first welcome you to this great city, and to say that I look forward to meeting with you and working with you in the future. And I also want to say, and I have no questions for you, is that I'm inspired, and other people should be inspired by you, the things that you've overcome, and the successes that you've had up to this point in your life. I think that you could have kind of closed down and not moved forward, but after the death of your husband, you had the 2 boys to raise, and you went on and you got your college degree late in life. So did I. I think that's an inspiration. I, as Speaker of the Assembly, would go to San Diego on a regular basis. Very impressed with a lot of the areas there. So I'm excited.
Thank you.
About the expertise, the experience, and the commitment that you bring to this great city. And I always believe that it's all about leadership. And I don't know where Mr. LaBonge is, because he and I are old sports guys, but you could see a basketball team, football team, any team bring in a new coach, and all of a sudden they do so much better. I'm hopeful that you will be that kind of inspiration that will take a department that has a lot of talented people, and I also might add, this is a very diverse city. I'd like to see a little more diverse hiring where it relates to that. But I want to see you take our planning team and take it to a level that this city wants, needs, and expects. And lastly, I will say there's an expression about good guys finish last. In your case, it's good people finish first, and we're glad to have you here.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wesson.
Thank you very much, Herb. I'd like to call the following individuals to speak. Lisa Sarkin, Brady Westwater, and Barbara Burke.
My name is Lisa Sarkin. I live in Studio City for most of my life. I'm the Secretary of the Studio City Neighborhood Land Use Committee, the Secretary of the Residents Association Overlay Committee, and a member of the Residents Association's Land Use Committee. I thank the Council for letting me speak today. Welcome to you, Gail Goldberg. I have seen firsthand the improvements you have done in San Diego. What a difference the city is now. It's just wonderful. I believe Ms. Goldberg and I have similar visions for community participation regarding local development. I have 2 suggestions for fixing planning, and when you get to know me, you'll know how opinionated I am about everything. I think that what lots of the members have already said about the doing something to combine planning and traffic is of utmost importance. Right now, they seem like they're going in different directions, especially in our area of Studio City. We have a tremendous amount of development, and nothing's going on with the streets. We have pretty soon, when these approximately 35 multifamily developments are open, I don't believe that we will be able to drive down the streets or get on the freeway. Also, I think there should be a creation of a new section of the planning department dedicated to the various specific plans. The specific plans were imposed to retain the unique character of the diversity of the city, and at the present time, there is little compliance with the specific plan, little or no reviews, and no updates that we can ever find of, especially of ours, the Ventura Corridor. The specific plans are essential to protecting Los Angeles from the one-size-fits-all attitude of some of the past administrations. And I again look forward to working with you, and thank you everyone for letting me speak.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Brady Westwater.
Okay, my name is Brady Westwater. I'm president of Downtown Neighborhood Council. I'm speaking today as an individual. First of all, I'd like to thank the mayor's staff, and the Planning and Land Use Committee under Ed Reyes' leadership for reaching out to not just the neighborhood councils, but all the communities in this process. I'd also like to thank the same people for reaching out to neighborhood councils, so we were involved in every step of this process up until the final interview. This is a new precedent that's never been done in this city before. Secondly, I'd like to thank them for finding Gail Goldberg and giving us to her, giving her to us. It's rare to find a person who really understands what a community could be. It's even rare to find someone who understands the process of how to make it happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Westwater. Our next speaker is Barbara Jordan Burke.
I'm Barbara Monahan Burke. I
Excuse me.
reside at 4223 Wilkinson Avenue in Studio City. I'm the chair of the Overlay Committee of the Studio City Residents Association. Ms. Goldberg, we need you to hold to the requirements and protections of our specific plans, to support our overlays, to keep the scale and character of our communities, which we value, intact, to preserve natural open space, since we are greatly underparked as a city, whether it be the Los Angeles River or Griffith Park or Studio City Golf and Tennis. Also, we need to preserve our rare historical properties that are so integral to our cumulative history, necessary for generations to come to have forever. We have very few compared to sections of the Northeast and South and all, and we really need to value these. Your reputation as valuing individual, human-scale neighborhood communities precedes you. I look forward to working with you, open, one-on-one communications to improve our communities and quality of life. Congratulations on your appointment and a hearty welcome to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That closes public comment, and I'd like to return to our Planning Land Use Management Chair, Mr. Reyes, with some closing comments.
Thank you, Council President. I'd be remiss if I did not mention and thank the mayor and his office, Bud Overham, Krista Klein, for the stewardship in this process. I want to thank them. Mark Winograd, he has been the interim director. He stepped up, provided a lot of guidance, set parameters, provided a horizon that we can aim for, and I want to thank him for his invaluable assistance and his guidance and his patience. One issue I did want to bring up before we close and ask for the vote is this notion of where housing should be built and how that impacts the transit corridors. One of my goals as chair will be to take Plum into the neighborhoods and ask a very simple question of the stakeholders. Where do you see housing in your neighborhood? Have them be part of that process that says this is where housing should go, this is the way we should adjust our specific plans, this is the language we need on our community plans, and these are the overall changes of the general plan that can start absorbing these needs. You know, colleagues, at times I speak to issues that are historical in nature, but they are what makes up today's reality. It is no secret that half of the city at one time had covenants on real estate titles that said in very clear letters, no Mexicans, no blacks, no Chinese allowed in these neighborhoods. And that's something that was in place up until the 40s. When you look at today's specific plans and the profound presence of how this city has invested in the past 4 to 5 decades in this city, you will find that many of the specific plans and many of these conditions, police, planning controls, essentially overlaid these very same type of entitlements that were very punitive to many communities. Today we are in a city that has an international role in the world economy. We have a regional presence that is profound, and we will continue to be that magnet for both domestic and international migration. So the question becomes, as stewards of our districts, answering the profound question, where will people live, is going to be a challenge not only for our new director, which we will be voting for, but also for us as policymakers and having the ability to enter that gauntlet, if you will, and address that question. Where does housing belong? Where can we build it? And create the right mechanisms to have the community folks define their own environment. So with that, I want to thank Ms. Goldberg for being here, and I encourage and I vote, and look forward to, I'm going to say, a real adventure in the next few years.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Reyes, and thank you, Ms. Goldberg, for this discussion. This has been a great discussion in council. And with that, if you'll please prepare the roll, Madam Clerk, on Ms. Goldberg's nomination, and tabulate the vote.
13 ayes.
Congratulations and welcome aboard.
Thank you very much. I look forward to working with all of you.
We do too. Thank you. Colleagues, I'd like to make an introduction real quick, if I may. We are very pleased to welcome to our chambers Cesar Mancias Amador, who is the mayor of Ensenada, just south of us in Baja California. Bienvenidos, señor alcalde Cesar Mancias Amador. Es un placer tener usted aquí en estas cámaras. And the mayor would like to greet the council and say a few words. Bienvenidos, por favor.
Muchas gracias. Estimados miembros del concilio, señor presidente, vengo de la ciudad de Ensenada, soy el alcalde de Ensenada, Baja California, México, y vengo a agradecerles en nombre de la gente de Ensenada el gran apoyo que hemos recibido de esta ciudad y estamos muy agradecidos con ustedes.
Esteemed colleagues from the City Council of the City of Los Angeles, I want to thank you for the great welcome that you've given me, and I want to tell you that we're very, very touched and excited about the support that you offer the City of Ensenada, and looks forward to working with the City of LA.
Hace un año y medio fui recibido aquí mismo y con el alcalde anterior, y hoy me da mucho gusto estar de nuevo aquí para complementar los acuerdos que en aquella ocasión tomamos. Le agradezco mucho y estoy muy contento que Antonio Villarraigosa esté ahora al frente. Por favor, háganle llegar mis saludos y mi agradecimiento, y vamos a seguir trabajando muy de cerca con ustedes. Tenemos muchas similitudes, estamos en una sola región y queremos invitarlos para que nos visiten cuando ustedes quieran, para recibirlos como ustedes lo merecen.
It's been about a year and a half ago since I was here the first time under the prior mayor, and it's an honor to be back here with Mayor Antonio Villarraigosa being the mayor. And he'd like to offer the mayor a welcome and to say hello to him in his absence. He is very excited about working with the City of LA. He is inviting all of the council and City of LA to come to Ensenada and to visit his beautiful city, to make sure that you are hosted in the way that you deserve to be hosted, and very thankful for all that you do here.
Por último, quisiera solamente informarles que tenemos grandes proyectos para nuestra ciudad, que estamos pensando mucho en compartir con ustedes, como lo es la posibilidad de un aeropuerto internacional, como lo es también la posibilidad ya muy avanzada de tener un puerto bastante grande, casi como el que tienen ustedes en Long Beach, para que podamos compartir y que podamos como ya dije, ser una región de oportunidades. Así que muchas gracias, los espero en Ensenada, muy agradecidos por su apoyo. Gracias.
One last point, he wanted to say that there are some very important projects that the city of Ensenada is embarking on, and he's hopeful that the city of LA and the city of Ensenada can work together in Ensenada's developing a new international airport and also the expansion of a new port in Ensenada similar to the size of Los Angeles, and he would welcome very much the opportunity to work with the city of LA on those two major projects. Again, thank you.
Thank you. We have two council members who would like to be heard. Mr. Huizar pressed his button first, and then Mr. Reyes. Mr. Huizar.
Bienvenido. Yo como un paisano nacido en Jerez, Zacatecas, me da mucho gusto verlo aquí hoy usted. Y sabemos que hay muchos angelinos que van a visitar como turistas a Ensenada y que también muchos que viven allí. Es muy importante que nosotros trabajemos juntos para asegurar la seguridad y los beneficios que hay y existe para los dos lados de la frontera cuando tenemos nosotros, los gobiernos trabajando juntos para seguir asegurar que todo sigue como está hoy. Y me da un gran placer también que aquí tenemos unos amigos que dan su tiempo para venir acá a traerle a usted. Y les quiero dar las felicidades por estar aquí. Bienvenida y estamos aquí para trabajar con usted. Muchísimas gracias.
Gracias.
Señor Reyes.
Sin más, quería compartir unas palabras. He tenido la oportunidad de mandar y ir con los bomberos de la ciudad de Los Ángeles a Ensenada. Hemos llevado equipaje para los bomberos, entrenamiento, camiones para ayudar y asistir a la ciudad de Ensenada. Era un gran placer estar ahí y compartirlo de esa manera. Muchas gracias por estando aquí. Bienvenido. Y ojalá seguimos trabajando juntos en el futuro. Carly, I just said that I had the opportunity to go with Chief Ramirez from the fire department. We were able to send some equipment, fire department equipment. We took a truck. We had some training, and in the sister city spirit, and just a privilege to be there, and great to see this partnership developing. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Muchísimas gracias otra vez. Bienvenidos. Gracias por su amistad. I just wanted to welcome you. Thank you again, Mr.
I just want to say too, and thank you so much, Mr. Reyes. I know that was very special, gifts. We have a great sister city program of 21 sister cities. We have a great relationship with Mexico City as our primary sister cities, and the charter asks that only one city from each country have that relationship, but it doesn't stop us from having a great friendship, and that's the great thing that we could do. And so we look forward to continue the great friendship in Ensenada. My family and I were there at Ports of Call this last summer, had a wonderful time. So beautiful is Ensenada. Thank you so much. Welcome, Mayor.
Thank you very much. Round of applause, please, for the Mayor of Ensenada. Thank you. Mr. Parks wanted to reconsider item 11. If we can please, if there's no objection, open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote on reconsideration.
12 ayes.
Okay, that is back before us. Mr. Parks, did you want to make a motion for public comment on this, to reopen that?
Yes, I think we have two cards.
Okay.
The owner of the property and also the realtor are here, and I'd like to ask that we have open
Okay, we have
comments
two
for 5
speaker
minutes.
cards, 2 minutes each, please. Crystal Lee and Daniel Dromerhausen. If we can, as soon as we could move, Mr. Labange, if we could just move a little bit to the side of the podium, that'd be great. Thank you. Please, the microphone is yours, 2 minutes.
Just identify yourself.
Thank you. I want to thank you for allowing to reconsider this. I wasn't familiar with your
Just give your name.
things. What? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Dan Drummerhausen. Please excuse me. As I say, I'm not familiar with the procedure. I'm the vested owner of the property. I'm here to express my feelings about this. Yes, I agree that the building shouldn't have been torn down. I don't have a problem with that charge, but what I object to is the 40% administrative charge. The notices were sent to the wrong addresses in the wrong names. At one time, this property was under the control of a court-appointed receiver, and he failed. I read in the mailing list that he was sent these things, but he failed to forward them to me so I could take care of these things. I have only been the vested owner of this property since June of 2004. I had no knowledge of any of these activities, and it's just to show an example, you know, in the last winter when we had all those tremendous rains, vacant lot made all the grass grow. Well, the weeds were too long, and I agreed, and the city sent me a notice, and I immediately took care of it. The crux of the matter here is I never, ever received these notices. Otherwise, I would have dealt with it in a very quick manner, as I did with the weed problem this last summer. So I just ask for a reconsideration of the 40% administrative fee, because I really never had notice because of the confusion with the receiver and various owners and wrong mailing addresses. I tried to keep this short. Thank you for listening to me.
Absolutely. Thank you. Appreciate it. Ms. Lee, would you like to add anything?
It is true. He is, as the title goes, he is the owner as of June 2004. I understand that if you do see a Drummer House, and that was his father, as of 3 years ago, he has passed on. This is the son, Drummer House, and so there might be confusion there, but according to title, you will see exactly how it is and how it is, how the vesting is as an unmarried man. So that is the son.
Thank you very much.
If you need proof, we have it here.
Okay, thank you. We appreciate your comments.
Thank you for your time.
Mr. President,
Mr.
we have the city staff. We asked them to come up briefly and make some comments, and we can move on this. Could you just give us a thumbnail of the history of this, and you heard the comments earlier, and whether a building and safety has found those to be accurate?
Building and Safety took the appropriate steps as far as we were required by law to do. This owner was represented by a receiver who committed a lot of land frauds, and he was not aware that he was receiving mail through this receiver. The receiver has a reputation for having taken people's property, just taken it away from them. This man had a father who owned the property before, but who died, and he was never made aware of any of the problems at the property. So the department is very willing to see the 40% administrative cost waived.
Could you give us a breakdown of what was expended and what we're talking about in total dollars?
Actually, I don't have it with me right now.
Let me just say that, colleagues, we're talking about roughly $35,000 in total. Primarily, the larger amount deals with the actual demolition of the house, $13,000. The cost for asbestos, $16,000. Graffiti removal, $3,000, $1,100 for the general cleaning of the lot, and $480 for the barricade. I'd make a motion, because of the confusion, that we waive the 40% administrative costs and that the remaining, I believe, $25,000 be paid for the actual work done on the property.
There's a second for that, Mr. Wesson. Anybody else wishing to be heard? Not, please prepare the roll and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
That is approved. Next order of business, Madam Clerk.
Next item, Mr. President, item number 6 was called special for card from the public.
Okay, we have a card on item number 6, Georgette and Diane Early, excuse me if I mispronounced that. I'd like to come forward to the microphone right now.
I am sorry, I'm not feeling well. I suffered 2 strokes. I have a hard time to communicate. I am here to appeal the tremendous amount of bill. The city cleaned me out twice, and they want me to pay $37,888.72. They destroyed my property inside of my house. They even took my glasses. I can't see very well. And I don't know how they can. And then I had workers. He worked inside my house, 7 people. destroyed everything what I had private, destroyed my garage, destroyed my yard, and I just don't know. A senior citizen, I live on a fixed income. How could I pay $37,888.27? And they fined me for certain dates when they were not cleaning. That's what happened only October 2004. For 3 days, they sent me a bill for $16,000 for an 8-hour work. And also, recently, in July, when they went into my house, they didn't even allow me to eat any food. They took all my grocery away from my house for a week while they were cleaning. The city attorney insulted me, called me a dirty, filthy woman. I am in common please allow me. It was too much to go through. I suffered a nervous breakdown. I have a high blood pressure, I can barely walk. And they locked me out of my house while they were cleaning it. In this regard, if I ask them, please, not to take something which was valuable for me or sentimental, they said, if I'm going to speak, they're going to arrest my daughter and they're going to put her in jail. I got sick, I passed out, they had to call a paramedic to stabilize me because I can't take it. I had no food for a week. I couldn't take no more medication. They throw everything away, private papers. They even went into my clothing. They put 85% of my clothing away from me. They said, I don't need them anymore. I am dead. I don't need my Christmas gift. I don't need anything what I had. So they went through my house. They trashed them up. I still can't find things. I still can't find my documents. I couldn't find my checkbook. I couldn't pay my bills for a whole month, and a city attorney, Miss Strick, hired an organizer on top of the 3-4 workers, stage workers who came in and threw everything away. I asked a fireman, who is in charge, what will be destroyed from my property? He said, me. He was sitting outside in a car, and they took video pictures that they're going to show me. They did never show me, and I heard about it on the court. They cut them down, which would be a thing what they took from me would show, if we see it, I had no, which would show what they threw away. And they said my house was a fire hazard. It was not. And when the workers locked me out of my house, I had some rum, but my husband, may I proceed?
That is your time. If you'd like to finish your sentence, you may finish your sentence.
But, pardon me, I can hear.
I'm sorry, if you'd like to finish the sentence, but otherwise your time is up, ma'am, I'm sorry.
Yes, and a man who worked in my house while I was locked out, they were drinking and opened up a bottle of rum, and they were drinking and smoking inside my house.
Thank you,
and
ma'am.
I was the one who was accused that my house is a fire hazard.
That's the end of your
I'd
time.
like to appeal, please, on $37,880.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Weiss?
Mr. President, it's my understanding that the representatives here from the Building and Safety Department, inspectors, as well as people who participated in the cleaning, if they could, and I don't know who you are, building and safety people? Are you building? If we could have all the building and safety people who had anything to do with this come to the table, all of you, anyone who's relevant, come to the table, and we'll give you as much time as you need to tell us the history of the property. Ma'am, why don't you might as well sit down while they speak. Tell us the entire history of this matter and what occurred here, and take your time.
Good morning. Senior Inspector Andy Harris, representing the Department of Building and Safety. I actually started with the 2055 Parnell property back in 1995. We cleaned out the side yard, rear yard, porch, backyard, garage of this property at that time, ordered by the court, with the assistance of the fire department. Mrs. Earl paid for the cleaning through the fire department at that time. And her daughter continually collects cans, bottles, newspapers, glass, old clothing, and stores them in the porch, in the side yards, in the rear yards, and they're stacked to the roofs of the buildings. This is a constant. It is, the yards have been cleaned 4 times. 3 times by building and safety contractors, once by the fire department. The interior cleanup was filmed at the request of the judge to make sure that nothing was stolen, that none of Mrs. Earle's private, personal, actual personal things would be taken. The things that were removed from the property were dictated by the organizer that the court appointed. The contractors removed what they were told to remove. Inspector Jack Matteo has been actually inspecting the job for 2 years now?
Yeah, almost 3 years now.
Okay, 3 years now. So he monitors it on a constant basis. We are back to having to clean it again as we speak. It's a habitual thing. We can't stop them. We haven't been able to stop them so far. And this is the only way we found to make a point, is by cleaning the property and leaning it.
You've got a lot of files there, and again, I think it'd be important for the council to understand this case. If you could show us photos and tell us what time period they're from, and again, just try to hold them up so people can see what you're talking about. Hold my time.
This is one of them. I don't know how well you can see it. You want to pass it around?
Yeah, bring it around.
Pass it around? Yeah, just walk it around so they can see.
Pass the photos around, but as you're doing it, you describe what you're showing people. So describe
Okay.
so that the record is clear.
This is a wooden fence that they have erected in their side yard. There are clothing in plastic bags above the fence, going almost to the roof level of the house again. You want to show them?
Yeah. This is
Go
before
on that side, Jeff.
And also when we're not in court here, but tell us when the photo was taken, at least what year.
Okay. These photos were taken before the exterior cleanup on July 6, 2005. We got pictures of the exterior before and after the cleanup, which I will pass around.
Thank you.
This is
Jack. It's, I don't know if you can see these.
Pass around, just describe what it is,
Okay.
describe the time it was
Again,
taken.
clothing,
okay.
bottles, cans,
All right.
Describe where
Where's
it's
the other
taken.
one that's gone
the
around?
interior.
in the side yard, in the yard between the garage and the house, in the backyard, in the rear yard, and in the garage.
You know what, maybe what we could do is pass all the photos you have around, the council members look at them. While that's happening, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions so folks can hear some other information. So just pass those photos around. Let me ask you, just to start from the basics, because I'm not familiar with this, others probably aren't as well. Why does the city clean certain properties? What is the legal authority? What are the public safety issues involved? How does this come to pass? Because it's not an ordinary thing. Walk us through the regulatory background here.
It starts with vermin, and the collection of debris causes vermin, causes droppings that cause illness, and the Department of Building and Safety in this particular section is required by law to clean up excessive vegetation, cans, bottles, clothing that is collected in side, rear, front porches on a residential.
The legal authority, just have a seat there again. The legal authority for doing this sort of regulatory operation on behalf of the city. What are the statutes? What are the rationales? What triggers building and safety, and why does it happen?
Let me see if I can encapsulate this to your liking there, Councilman. Building and Safety has the authority to go out on any property anytime there is a violation of health and safety codes, building codes, zoning codes. In this case, combination of building code and health and safety codes were in violation, as well as fire codes, where we have the ultimate authority in conjunction with the fire department to go out and cite. We followed the due process. As you heard briefly, that this matter did go to court. We followed the exact due process for the owner, and with lots of notification, the proper notification, proper time to respond. They even had appeal rights, and all of that was in fact provided over this last 2 years of dealing with this property.
And is this something where often, what can be the impact on a neighborhood or on neighbors when these sorts of conditions are allowed to continue?
Typically, the impacts are from the health and safety standpoint. You have lack of vermin control, or there's plenty of vermin that would be in and around that area. Fire, in particular, is ultimately a safety hazard. In some of these photographs that are going around here today, you'll see probably a snapshot or two of the fire inspectors that have been out at this property as well. This has caused an extreme hazard. There's probably a picture in there, 1 or 2 pictures of a Christmas tree that's in the living room, which I believe has probably been in there for at least 1 or 2 years.
When you talk about fire inspectors, do these sorts of conditions cause a fire hazard?
Absolutely.
How is that?
Any given moment, if by chance an appliance is turned on, or if there's an electric short, any given number of reasons, a match struck, there's a lot of combustible materials in these areas. There's plastics, there's papers, there's fuel-based substances. Any of these things can, in fact, generate a fire hazard.
And for that reason, are properties such as this a fire hazard to neighboring people and property?
Absolutely.
How would you characterize it, as a moderate or a severe hazard?
It's severe.
Why would you characterize it as severe?
It's severe because of the amount of combustibles that are in that particular home and surrounding property. And it's also severe given the fact that we have given the owners opportunities to mitigate the problem, and they've chosen not to, and there's an ongoing problem at this time.
Okay. As officials of the Department of Building and Safety and as officials of the fire department, do you have a duty to the public to protect the public from unsafe conditions in their neighborhood?
Absolutely. That's one of first and foremost our duties.
Okay. And can you conceive of a diligent fire inspector or building and safety inspector who would allow a property such as this to exist in a neighborhood unabated?
We could not conceive that. One thing I do want to say is, and everybody knows that there is due process involved. We do have timetables we have to follow, whereas the individuals can file for appeals. But having said that and having gone through that process, basically I think the city's position at this point is that we've done everything we could possibly do to try to mitigate this.
I'm not in a position to characterize this property versus other such PACRAD properties, but can you tell us, in your opinion, the three of you there, compared to other properties, is this on the low end of the scale, is this moderate, or is this a severe problem, this property?
It's massive.
Sorry?
It's massive.
Speak into the mic.
It's massive.
Severe.
It's
very
big.
severe.
It's very severe.
Have you seen many properties this massive in your time?
Yes.
Okay. And does the department try to respond when it sees these sort of properties to protect the people who live in those neighborhoods?
Every time.
Okay. A few minutes ago, Mr. Cardenas asked me to follow up on this, and he's absolutely right. You had mentioned in your earlier remarks that there was court supervision of this process. Can you walk us through that again, just so the record is clear, so we understand that?
In 1995, after the Northridge earthquake, I was an inspector in the West Los Angeles office. Orders to comply were written to the Earls requesting that they clean their property up. We were receiving we were receiving massive complaints from the neighbors and from the council offices, excuse me, at the time. We received no response.
Going back to, you said going back to,
1995.
so that predates, that's at least one council.
It's been ongoing from that time. It's been in court from that time. They have violated their probation on a number of times because they continually store the items, and we continually have to go back and clean the property. The court has told them not to. They continue to do it. They've been fined, they've been placed in jail for the same violations numerous times.
Now, Mr. Cardenas had a question about whether anyone had been appointed by the court in this matter. Do you understand his question?
It was an outside organizer. It had nothing to do with building and safety.
One more series of questions for you. The bill here is for $37,000. What precisely is that for?
For cleaning, removing the debris from the property, inside and outside.
I notice in my file here, I have a notice of public hearing for, I guess, today's council, which lists a number of properties, some as low as $338, some at $11 grand, one at $22 grand, one at $29. This at $37,000 is the high number. Why is that dollar figure so high?
It's a number of cubic yards of material that we had to remove from the property.
Okay. No further questions.
Thank you, Mr. Weiss. Nobody else wishing to be heard? Please prepare the roll, Madam Clerk, and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
That is approved. Next item of business, please.
Next item is item number 16, and that was called special for cards from the public.
Okay. Item 16, if we can please ask, we have one public speaker card, Rabbi Aaron Abend, if you'd like to come forward now, Rabbi. Is the Rabbi here? Going once, going twice, okay. I know they were here earlier, so let's consider public comment open and closed. Anybody wishing to be heard on this matter? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please prepare the roll and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
That item is approved. Next item, please.
Next item is item 34, and that was called special for card from the public.
Okay, Sylvia Hawkins is a member of the public on item 34. Ms. Hawkins, if you'd like to come forward, you have two minutes.
Assuming I can be granted 3 to 5 minutes to read one paragraph.
2 minutes, ma'am.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My name is Ms. Sylvia Hawkins. To the Director of Planning, asking to permit the paperwork of withdrawing of appeals is the best thing to do. Since they are here to work, illegal immigrants, we must stop them from suing United States of America building for their country to gain property and each state. This is the only reason they are building here in the United States of America and hiring ownership. Legal people are not. To rob United States of America government buildings since their country is broke, poor, being bombed, and trade has stopped by United States of America government since September the 11th, 2001. These countries are guilty of taking all exchange, trade money, banks and union money back to their country. Citizens of United States of America and soldiers of Hawk 8 has destroyed all money here and overseas. Therefore, they can't not take over United States of America buildings, job position, property, or people in United States of America, plus 8 states. For their leaders are dead, and they are only here to see whether they can get free trades, whether they can get agreements, another bond agreement, everything canceled, and let's start over. The best thing I can say at this time is please United States American government. We are at war.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hawkins.
Respect to 2 years. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Closes public comment on this item. Anybody wishing to be heard? If not, please, Madam Clerk, open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
That is approved. Next item, please.
Next item, Mr. President, are the closed sessions, and also number 62 is on the desk. That's Mr. Stuckey.
Okay, let's take that into closed session as well.
Do you wish to clear the desk before going into closed session?
Sure, let's clear the desk.
Council has motions for posting and referral.
Those are posted and those are referred.
There are excuses on the desk. Councilmember Smith requests to be excused March 21st, 22nd, 24th, and 28th for city business. Those meet council policy.
Okay, he is excused.
Councilmember Weiss requests to be excused March 7th for city business and March 17th, 21st, 22nd, and 24th for personal business, and those all meet council policy.
Mr. Weiss is excused.
And that clears the desk for closed session.
Okay, we will now, in accordance with California state law, go into closed executive session, discuss legal matters, and we will come back into open session and let the public know any actions that we take. Thank you all very much. If we can please clear the council chambers. Thank you and welcome back into open session. Madam Clerk, do you have any open session actions we need to take on the closed session items?
Yes, Mr. President. On item number 59, that settlement in the case of Darius Almanzafar versus Diaz, and that's amount of $107,064.56.
Okay, please open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
That's approved. Any other items?
Next item is item 61, and that's a workers' comp case. Name of the case is Jeanette Rivera versus the city, and it's in the amount of $170,000.
Okay, please prepare the roll and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
That is approved as well.
And that clears the desk.
Okay, that clears the desk. Announcements, colleagues. Any announcements? Yeah, Mr. LeBon.
Tonight at the ArcLight, there's going to be a great film, the 1969 classic Midnight Cowboy, which starred Dustin Hoffman and John Voight, 8 p.m. It's a little tribute to one of the greatest films ever made, and it was Academy Award winner in 1969, Midnight Cowboy. John
Absolutely.
Voight, Dustin Hoffman.
Thank you. Any other announcements, colleagues? Yes, Mr. Parks.
Yes, I'd like to announce that the Community Budget and Finance Committee special meeting will be in the Valley, Tuesday, January 31st, 6:30, at the Van Nuys City Hall, 14410 Sylvan Street, in the council chamber, second floor. And also the next meeting of the Commission on Youth and Families for community input on safety will be Thursday, January 26, 5:30 p.m. at Ross Snyder Rec Center at 1501 East 41st Street.
Thank you. Any other announcements, colleagues? If not, can I please ask everybody to rise for adjourning motions? Ms. Gruhl.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, it's with great sadness that I ask that we adjourn in memory of Betty Berzon. If you read the Los Angeles Times today, there was quite an amazing obituary on her life, and it is, we only have a short time today to kind of recognize how incredible a woman she was, but I'd like to highlight some of her many, many accomplishments. Her life was really an inspiration to all of us, particularly, though, to individuals in the gay and lesbian community. She was the one person who helped found the country's first social service agency for gay and lesbians, now called the Los Angeles Gay and Lesbian Center. She is someone who took her sometimes pain into helping others learn through this experience she went through. She was an author and a pioneering psychotherapist who really was a beacon for the community for 3 decades. She passed away on Tuesday at her Studio City home in my district after a 20-year battle with cancer. According to her partner, and many of you know Terry DiCrescenzo, who started the gay and lesbian the GLAAD organization that we are so familiar with. She has so many different books that she has written. She produced in the mid-60s Encounter Tapes, which is tape-recorded instructions for self-directed encounter groups. She received national attention for its Quest for Love workshops. It was only when she was 40 years old that she admitted to herself that she was gay and had the opportunity to meet Terry DiCrescenzo, who was her partner for over 33 years. She was just an incredible person who gave of her life and is someone I've had the pleasure of knowing for many, many years. She was born in St. Louis, actually in 1928, to teenage parents whose unhappy marriage really set her in a direction where she realized that she needed to seek outside support from others outside her family. And that's what she strove to do in her career as a psychotherapist, to do that. She took on the issue of the gay-lesbian community when it wasn't popular. Believe it or not, in 2001, and there's a story in the paper today, when her cancer reoccurred, she fought some prejudice at the hospital admissions. She now has created an option where they have domestic partners on the marital status and the ability for her partner to be with her. So I just wanted to say today that she has been an incredible woman. She will be missed by not only thousands of people here in Los Angeles, but across the country, whose life has been touched, but what she did and what she stood up for in her, albeit short life these days at 78 years old. I'd just like to acknowledge that a funeral will be held at the Pierce Brothers Westwood Memorial Park on Friday at 11 a.m. A memorial service featuring the Los Angeles Gay Men's Chorus is planned for 5 p.m. on February 26th at the Omni Hotel in Los Angeles. Memorial donations may be sent to the Gay and Lesbian Adolescent Social Services, the GLAAD program here, or the Lambda Literary Foundation in New York. She is survived by her partner of 33 years, Terry DiCrescenzo, her sister Stephanie Miller, her stepmother, Trudy Burson, and stepsister Barbara Kaplan. I ask that we adjourn in her memory, and I know Mr. Rosendahl would want to join me in this. The last time I had all members that I had a chance to see Betty was at their home, and Bill was present. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Labange.
Members, I ask we adjourn in memory of Donna Nakwe, 46-year-old, died over the weekend, and still to be determined possible heart attack. 46-year-old Donna Nakwe grew up in Los Angeles, went to Notre Dame High School, West Los Angeles, was an administrative assistant in the radio field for many, many years, a friend of my family. She had 9 brothers and sisters. Donna Nakwe, as we adjourn in her memory.
Thank you, Mr. Labange. Mr. Parks.
Thank you, Mr. President. I ask that we adjourn in memory of Ola Mae Patterson, born in Spring Hill, Arkansas in November 1922. She was the 5th of 7 children. She later met and married her husband, David, in 1942. Together they had 8 children. She later moved to Santa Monica in 46, and after being a housewife for many years, she was later hired as a cook at University Hospital until she was medically retired. She passed away at the age of 84 on January the 11th. Funeral services were held last Tuesday at Holy Missionary Baptist Church. She's survived by 3 sons and 23 grandchildren. Also, I'd like to adjourn in memory of Carolyn Hill Larkin, born February 1944. She relocated from Cleveland to Gardena in 1970. Several years later, relocated to Linwood, where she resided until her death, December of 2005. She was only 61 years of age. Funeral services were held at Community Missionary Baptist Church, January 3rd. She's survived by her husband, Melvin, and 3 children. 4 children.
Thank you, Mr. Parks. I ask colleagues that we adjourn in memory of Matthew Rizzo, a 47-year-old who passed away on January 3rd, 2006 after a year-long battle with cancer. He was a career electrician and a lifelong member of IBEW, born in Encino and the brother of senior city attorney Claudia Cullen. In addition to his sister Claudia, he's survived by his wife Kathy, his parents Philip and Helen Rizzo, a brother and 2 sisters, and a large extended family. There was a memorial service that was held this month, January 13th, at St. Gregory Church in Scripps Branch. And just briefly, Matt worked for over 20 years as an electrician, first for Dyne Electric and then Neil Electric, was a member of IBW 569 in San Diego. And realizing a dream, he got his pilot's license and loved to fly, and became an owner in the Baja Flyers Flying Club and a member of the AOPA. He enjoyed boating, water skiing, snow skiing, diving, motorcycle riding, as well as designing and building projects at his home. And anybody who ever met him was immediately drawn to him because of his outgoing personality, his warmth, sense of humor. He was an extraordinary raconteur. And our thoughts are with the entire family, with Claudia, and may Matt Rizzo please rest in peace. Madam Clerk, please call the roll. This meeting of the Los Angeles City Council is adjourned. Thank you all very much.